got spoiled.
Right.
Because you don't have to have the water cooler talk. You know, what have you been doing for 2 years?
And then, brother, I was about 3 hours of my day at the office.
Hey, what you been up to? I mean, twiddling my thumbs. I mean, so like at 2 o'clock every day, you know, I can take my daughter on a walk, or I'm sure you have those terrible calls that are so frustrating, and you can shut it down and go on a walk, and nobody can bother you. Now, if you're in the office, like I'm more unproductive, you know.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I'm in sales now, but I'm at home now. Now I'm trying to balance, like, my kids not nagging me, and when they're on my wife all day.
That's why I'm in the garage.
It's like, oh, hey, I'm working.
Shut the door. Turn my garage into my office.
I'm working. She comes, I need help. No.
Sorry.
Hello, hey, what's up, man? Well, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Thanks
you
for
as
being
well,
here, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. You're welcome.
This is the surge. The magical surge. Everybody terrified.
They had to leave here, they were here.
Yeah, and they actually said that even now they even if you go in, that's or not, you have to wear a mask. Really good question. What is it? Good question. I don't know how to answer it for you. Nope, and neither. Yeah, I'm not. You have to read or something that you're going to read tonight, or do something that you wanted them to.
It's something that I wanted them to look at.
If you mind to look at it?
That's the reason I handed it to you.
I appreciate
now,
that.
what you're looking at there
Yeah.
is an audit that was performed back in 2019. If you'll read that audit, and you can have that, take it home with you. You'll read through it and the paperwork associated with it. It's recommended that there was a policy change done back in 2019.
This was all discussed in the April 2019 City Hall meeting.
That
I was
hasn't
here.
happened yet.
John Bond, so.
John, Mike Ellis,
Matt, good to meet you, man.
my pleasure.
Cody Ellis.
Oh, hey, Cody. How you doing?
Great, how are you?
Yeah.
Then you know about this audit.
Oh, yeah, I know about a lot of this. I'm glad
And
that you've done the work here.
you know that right now, there's a guy being prosecuted
Yep.
for the same thing that was called out in that audit.
Yeah.
I think we got a problem.
Oh, we did have a problem.
Well, you don't think we know.
Yeah, you're correct.
You can't prosecute one when you've got actually the people that should be an example
Okay.
doing the same thing.
Exactly. Thank you for this.
Sure.
Matt, you gotta help me. I know you like to click your pen.
It's done.
Sorry, but thanks.
Not a problem.
Myself doing it the other night, so it's okay.
I don't think that was me though, but okay.
No, it wasn't.
All right, good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call a special city council meeting to order, called by council member Darren Warren, Justin Calgar, and Amy Rochette to order. We do roll call first.
Sure. Misty Elam.
Here.
Darren Warren.
Here.
Josie Reed.
Here.
Keith Higginbotham.
Yes.
Justin Calgar.
Yes, sir.
And Amy Rochette.
Here.
And Mayor Bill Edwards.
First item on the agenda is discussing our purchasing procedures. Ryan, did you want to say something at this point? Or no?
I mean, I can, I just have to advise, that you guys need to be particularly careful. It's my understanding there's an open investigation. I think Chief can probably, is Chief here?
Yeah, he's back there.
Okay, might wanna add to that as well, that A, we don't wanna spoil any evidence. B, I've talked to Nathan Smith as well. Nathan Smith, is kind of advised the same thing. He doesn't wanna take a jury pool. He doesn't wanna hinder the investigation or, spoil it. There's potential civil liability that we can have if for some reason this doesn't, if he is not convicted. And I just wanna leave it at that.
Do you need anything, Chief, or he did? All right, so on this discussion, I'm gonna start off with Darren. Darren, he's gonna kind of, wants to say something, and then we're gonna kind of lead into this.
You know, I might even be a little bit more specific than what Brian's saying. I don't think we need to be mentioning anybody's names. You know, because like you said, there is an open investigation. We'd hate to hinder that investigation in any way by starting to throw people's names out, not even limit, even though some people know items that are part of a police report and a news report, we're not going to limit talking about those items. My big thing is, and I think even, I don't know if Brian want to talk on this some, getting too, maybe even in depth at this time with our policy that we have and changing that policy, to the point that it could open up to where it could change the current investigation.
And understand that anything that we do in this meeting that forms a record will be, if it's at all advantageous to the defense, it will be used. He's got a very savvy criminal defense attorney, I highly respect him, I guarantee you, he'll use whatever he can to help his client. So we want to ensure that justice is done. We don't want to hinder justice by making mistakes, setting it up.
You know, I want us to ask the difficult questions of how we got to this point.
Can I
And
stop you for just a second?
sure, go right ahead.
I know in our email this morning or this afternoon about public comment, we need to make an amendment to the,
Yeah.
agenda. Do we need to do that now?
Let Darren finish, and then
Okay.
no, you're absolutely right, I forgot, but yeah, go ahead
And I would ask, I hope everybody has had a chance to read through our current policy. And,
I gave you some other cities too.
of course, the mayor has provided us a copy of that. Looks like, a copy of some neighboring cities. And none of us are purchasing experts. So it's good that we've got some copies from some other cities. And I asked the mayor if there was like a standard operating procedure, say, for each department, and that might be something we need to look at, because my thing is, even though we have an ordinance, typically you end up with intra-departmental standard operating procedures. Okay, how do you accomplish this? And do we need to be looking at that also, you know, on how purchases flow within a department? Sure, we've got this list of how this is approved, but how is that accomplished? You know, I think anybody who's worked in, you know, just about any job, there's typically some standard operating procedures that say, okay, this is now how you're going to accomplish A, because we set up a policy that doesn't necessarily come before the council, because that, you know, since I've been working in government basically my entire career, that's how we've always done stuff. Okay, how do you publish something in the newspaper? Okay, A, B, C, D. You know, how do you achieve this mission? You know, so there might be some things we look at from that standpoint, not only within our approved purchasing policy, but, and that's maybe more day-to-day operations, but that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And I know there's one item that I see that to me really needs to be addressed within our current policy. And before I guess we get into that, I don't know if we want to go ahead and someone add on, to, you know, make a motion to add on to our agenda for
Yeah.
public comment.
Yeah, and I forgot about that, but someone like to make a motion to add public comment at the head of our agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion from
I'll
the
second
second?
that.
I'll second. Okay.
And Zoom is not working right now.
I got it on.
I just tried to get it on
Oh, I didn't know. There, now we can hear it.
Zoom. Okay.
Sorry. Alright, got it. You can see it. Alright, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright, sorry, Darren, go ahead. Let me add this under executive session.
And I don't know if y'all want me to go for what I think is
Yeah.
the question for me is, and I know I think a lot of us have read the news articles on some of the items that, were purchased. And when I look under, funds under $1,000, item number C, if the proposed expenditure has not been previously appropriated and budgeted, it shall require prior approval of the city council. So, my question is, how is items reviewed before they're paid for or before they're approved? Okay, it's under $1,000, but who's reviewing what is being purchased? Because I get it, there's a lot of items that fall underneath either miscellaneous and things like that, but when people are buying stuff, who's checking to see if that's what the council approved in the budget?
What you do in the budget is you budget a line item like for small tools and materials and, is that it? Yeah, small tools and equipment. You budget for these things. You don't budget every single little item, you budget an amount.
But I think some of the items that were purchased are so far outside of what the city probably would be purchased. And like I said, I'm trying not to get into specifics so that
Well, I think you could
either
probably
Brian doesn't
use
have
the
to
items
stop
that
me
are in
or.
the- You could probably use the items that are already in the media.
So, I mean, so in the media was mentioned, I think, a really large ceiling fan. I mean,
Calligraphy set.
so that's out there. I'm trying to think, maybe y'all can help me with some other items that have been mentioned in the media that everybody knows
Like
about.
I said, a
that,
calligraphy set.
How does something like that's not a screwdriver, that's not a sander, that's not a hammer. And who in the city would use a calligraphy set? I mean, where's these things, how do we tighten it up so items like that? I mean, obviously, we as a council did not approve for a calligraphy set to be purchased.
Council does not have approved, is not in the day-to-day operations. But I think what Darren is trying to say is, how do line items get approved? What is the process?
When we approve the budget, we come to you to.
No, line items on invoices.
Like, how do we reconcile those purchases?
I think what's the process?
So what's the process when an item is purchased?
When an invoice comes through.
When an invoice comes through, department heads have to sign off on them. And then at that point, they're turned into the accounting and
Who's the accounting?
the accounting department, the finance department, we'll say gets turned into the finance department. Okay. And then from there, the finance assistant will go through and post them to, because it keeps segregation of duties, and she will post them to our accounting system, our software system that we use. In that process, it is looked at to say, okay, what is the item and listing it out, as well as any explanation. If we have a question on it, then we reach out to the department head and say, what is this for? If we think it's heads or tails, or what is this for? Or is it for somebody to take or if it falls in that realm? Like if it's a hotel thing, who is it for and what's the reason of the trip, okay? So that way we can put that information into CSA.
And that's
That's our accounting program.
that's the job of the finance assistant?
Yes, and they post the payment, okay? At that point, then it comes to me because I have to sign off on the check. Two signers have to sign off on the checks. I'm typically one of them since I'm in the office as well as Bill. If I'm at the office, Todd will come in and sign it. If I'm out or Bill's out, he'll come in, or Keith does come in at times. But we have two people who have to sign off on the checks. We go through and look at it. I look at it to say, okay, what is being purchased and is it being put in the system correctly? So was something purchased under, they wrote, because I know you've asked this before, miscellaneous expense. Well, technically, no, that can be categorized as a small tool or something like that. And then we make the correction so that way it is posted correctly. And then, the mayor has to sign off on all invoices as well too, to say that he has looked at them. That is one of the requirements of audit, is he has to sign all invoices.
So I'm just asking a question, as far as procedure on that, is Was the check cut prior to you looking at the items that are on the actual invoices?
Sometimes,
I
sometimes.
just want to understand the
No, and I
process,
get
because
that,
we
I
don't
understand
understand that. Or we haven't
Sometimes they
been-
are, sometimes I look at them before I hand them off to be posted, sometimes they're not, it just depends on how busy we are. But we don't allow the check to go out if something was, if something was posted under an incorrect fund, for whatever reason, if it was done to Parks and Rec, general fund, it should have been Parks and Rec checking because, we didn't see checking written on there, or if it was, scribble writing, something like that. Then at that point, we void out the check and we process it under the correct fund.
So does your department head, like if an invoice has 5 different things on an invoice from Amazon, does the department head say this is going to go into line item, miscellaneous, tools, whatnot,
Yes,
and
they
then you
might
go back?
have what it is, yes. Sometimes if it's all the one thing, then they just might say, materials and supplies, or I want this one taken out of material supplies, I want this one taken out of small tools, because that's what it falls under based upon what it is.
And there's a state audit that we go through every year.
Every
that
year,
rigorously looks
legislative
through
audit comes.
to
and
make
they
sure
do-
that expense is in the correct account.
Correct.
Yes.
Does the state, oh, sorry, does the state auditor look at line items on
So-
invoices?
They do, when a state audit comes in, they do a spot check is what it is, because they can't look at every single line item.
Okay.
They look at a dollar amount, certain dollar amount as well too, over, that they have to pull so many of and say, okay, what is this, what's it being used for?
So they don't necessarily look at every single
They can't
invoice?
look at every
Okay.
single invoice, no, you would have to have somebody in here a lot longer than what they are allowed to legally be in here, because they only have so many hours that they can be here that's budgeted.
Well, and in the past, I've sat with them in there and if they find something, then they go back and they pull a lot more and they go through and it hasn't been that way lately. But they're typically 2 months.
They have to, I wanna say it's 500 hours, I believe is what they told me is what they are required to be here for. That came, last time they were here, I wanna say it was probably closer to 3 months. They sometimes have they typically have two auditors here, one that usually start off with one, and they get an additional year. And then the second one will get pulled off to go somewhere else, just because they have a bunch of cities or schools that they have to audit. I've only had it happen once where they had a third person here, and that was maybe for 2 or 3 weeks, and that was it.
Brian, let me know if I go too far here. So I'm guessing when we have, since this has been in the media, Amazon business account, how many people have direct access to spend under that is my first question, and the second part is, when we have a meeting, I'm sure monthly and reconcile, are they all in the meeting together? And are we making sure those numbers match up, or how does that process work?
So,
Could she use a mic?
yeah,
some of us.
Could she please use a microphone?
is it on top? I'm sorry, I'm just naturally like talker, I apologize, I don't. So with that, so answering your first question for Amazon, we have it set up to where so department head would say, I wanna allow maybe their second in command or those who order supplies authorization to order. That then has to go to the department head and they have to approve it through the system, that's how Amazon is set up. So when that happens, then typically they choose pay by invoice. We do have it set up to where there is a card attached to it, but they have moved away from that and have always gone primarily to pay by invoice, which works out great for me, I love it. So whenever somebody places an order, there's an area in there where they can put comments in, saying, hey, look, I'm ordering this, for, whatever reason, because we need it for X, Y, Z. That's just so that way whoever the approver is knows details behind it. So that's how it works with Amazon itself. Now, for your reconciliation question, we do a reconciliation on all our accounts every month. We have to legally, by the end of the month, complete a reconciliation within 30 days. typically, we have them done within the first couple of days of the month, because, again, I can't present you guys numbers if I don't know they're correct, and that's how I personally stand, that's how I feel, that's why reconciliation is, I make sure they get done in a timely manner. When that happens, all the reconciliation is saying that this check came through the bank, and we processed it, and so it clears. So that way we know at the end of the day what's still outstanding. It doesn't go line item by line item, it doesn't say, well, here's a check came through and it was charged to materials and supplies, small tools, or anything like that. No, it's just, here's the check, here's what we had in the system, it clears.
So you're just reconciling the dollar amount, not necessarily the
Correct.
items purchased.
Correct.
So how many open accounts do we have that people can charge on?
I gotta think about this.
Amazon being one, obviously.
Amazon is one, yes, I mean, if you wanna call the city credit card one, technically you can do that one.
Let's, hold on, how many cards are there? One for
For
the
the
city?
city credit card, each department does have a card that is assigned to their department, except for, okay, so Public Works has one that's assigned to streets, and one that's assigned to parks. Fire has two that are assigned to them, PD has two that are assigned to them, and a lot of that's because if they go on training, they have to pay for a hotel, and they need to bring a card with them to pay, and if they take the card, and something needs to be purchased, if the guy needs to go down and restock supplies, say at Dollar General, you can't do that, you know? So that's why, the main reason why a lot of them have that too is because of that travel purposes. And then,
No, on the credit cards, just so we walk through this slowly. Let's say they didn't go to a hotel. Do they have to give you a receipt?
yes.
Itemized?
So I require an itemized receipt for anything that is purchased.
And when that comes through,
Department heads have to sign off
what
on
if it's
it.
a department head? Who signs off on department head stuff?
Department heads can sign off on their own. So department heads are the only ones that can sign off on them.
But it would naturally go through the finance department to get a check
To whoever we're paying, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So credit cards, Amazon, what else? Do we have hardware stores?
So we have Lowe's, Tractor Supply. We do have a Staples account, but it's not a credit card, it's just an online account for our supplies. Now, if you're talking actual cards, if you're actually talking credit cards itself, then you're talking Walmart as well too, we have one with them. I think that's all of them off the top of my head.
And are those cards checked out through you if the
So-
department wants to use them, or do they have access to those at all times?
So for those cards, each department, like I said, for the credit card itself, each department has their own. And they have their own internal, if they have to check it out, they have somebody write it and check it out. For like the Walmart card and what I have in my office, I have them actually check it out. The date they checked it out, how much they spent, who spent it, the date they checked it in. So that way, sometime whenever we get the statement in, I can say,
Match
okay,
everything up.
who had it if a receipt wasn't turned in. Typically when they come in, I always remind them, make sure you return the receipt back in to me. I do know that there is the Public Works that does have a Walmart. I don't think they have the Walmart, I might be wrong, Lance could probably correct me for sure, but yes, they do. They do have a Walmart community card down there because they do a lot of their purchasing either at Sam's Club for things, especially come Christmas time, for the lights that they have to purchase, they have that, and then they also have a Lowe's card. I have a Lowe's card in the office as well too, again, anybody else who needs it, they have to come and they have to check it out.
I think the bigger question is the approval process on how does it get approved, who's looking at it? I think for me, that would be the biggest concern.
So you see the itemized, what's the second conversation after you see it? What's the
After-
check and balance? Like who else sees itemized besides you?
So Mayor has to see it as well too, cause he signs off on it, the, department heads all have to sign off it, audit has to look at the itemized, I mean, all of it is there. Now, on that itemized, when we get it, that's, if it looks like it's something that is within the Okay, so if PD comes in and they say, here's an invoice, I wanna purchase ammo, we understand that. Now, if PD came in and said, I wanna purchase Christmas lights, we're gonna say, why? And that's when we start asking questions. And if they can give us a justified answer, we're purchasing because of whatever, not saying they purchase Christmas lights, I'll just use that example, it's Christmas. Then we say, okay, why is that? And we make note of it.
But that's before the purchase.
No, that's when we get the invoice.
Oh, when you get, okay.
Yeah, cause we don't know about the purchase prior to the invoice,
Gotcha,
because,
okay.
I mean, we don't have somebody who does all the purchasing for the city as that's their primary job.
So something that's been mentioned in the media going along with like a ceiling fan. Can we bring that example up, or would you highly encourage?
Let's try to keep it to one example, at this point, I think, the problem is, we don't know how to do it. I just won't be real.
But at the same time, we need to figure out.
I know, I understand that too, right, but let's stick to one item, and let's see if we can use that.
So, when I
there's one
look,
little thing.
so when I look at all these accounts, and, you know, this was mentioned in the media, I believe, layering purchases, using each account to purchase items that keeps them under the $1,000 threshold that the mayor has to approve. How do we change that? I mean, so when you got, right now, we've got 6 accounts, and if someone spent $700 on each of those accounts, what is that, $3,500, $4,200 that they could purchase without anybody's prior approval. So that's one of the things I'm looking at. If I can do, we just use 500 as an easy number, $3,500 on those 6 accounts. I mean, how do we control that without just creating a huge headache for the employees doing the right thing, but at the same time, we gotta tighten some screws down. I mean, do we change that number that, okay, cumulatively, if Department, Public Works, maybe per week, you know, they're spending more than $1,000 per week, then everything after that's gotta get approved. I mean, because somebody knew how to work the system to get to where they got by layering their purchases and not having to get approval.
How often is an item questioned when you guys get an invoice turned in? I mean, I'm just asking ballpark, how often is an item questioned between you and or Bill?
I couldn't give you a percentage, to be honest.
I mean, just ballpark, I mean, is it maybe 1 out of 10 invoices they turn in that you see, or?
It depends, if it's invoices, if it's, say from Shine, I apologize about pronouncing that company wrong, and they turn in that invoice, you know, that's a normal thing for them, we don't question it, because it's, you know, medical, so stuff like that for us. It all truly depends upon what is on invoice or what's on the receipt as to make us say, okay, what's being questioned here? I mean, some of the receipts we get, it will list, I'll give you Lowe's for example. When Lowe's comes in, we have to, because as you all have you go shopping at Lowe's, you see what the receipt looks like. It doesn't tell you what something is, 3/8 inch, something or other with weird numbers. That doesn't tell you exactly what it is. Technically, in audit, it's an itemized receipt, but that's not good enough for us. We like to know exactly what it is, so we look up the item number for every single one of those items to say, what exactly is this, so we can spell it out, not just exactly what that receipt says.
Is that something you have to do by yourself, look that up each one of them, or is that the department head's role?
That falls within the position with the finance assistant, since they're the one posting it in there. That's what they have to do, is they have to look it up.
So our department heads can, I'm just asking.
No, you're fine.
Our department heads, there's, I wanna say, just listening, talk, 12 people have access to credit cards, I'm sure more. They can spend the money, and then you have to do the work to itemize?
Some of the receipts are plain out itemized. They
Right.
list exactly what it is. I'm giving you the worst case scenario with the Lowe's card, because that's always the one that is physically having to go and look up what the item is. Just know though, with the credit cards, there's $1,000 limit on there, they can't spend more than 1,000.
So
For
is-
one purchase,
For
correct?
a single purchase or purchase for an entire day. So if they do it couple and then they hit at the end of the day and they met that 1,000, they can't purchase beyond it. If they do one purchase for 1,000, that's the limit.
For
so,
24 hours, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's, of course, limits on the card itself that they can't go over each month. I don't remember what the limit is, but, right off the top of my head, but they can't spend over X amount on the actual card itself, because we have that cut down to say, you can only spend $1,000, up to $1,000 a day, single purchase, or up to, I'm just gonna throw the number out there, 3,000 a month. You can't go over that.
And I wanna add one more thing to these credit cards, cause this is before Pam came. We used to have just 2 credit cards, and we had a log like she has for some of the other ones. Somebody could walk in there, just take it, you know, and then we had to track down receipts. We had to send a group message out. Hey, who purchased this? This new system had, well, it's not new, but it has like, it'll say mayor. They'll track it down for me. Like when we go to municipal league, when I register all you, they track them down. Bill, where's the receipt? You know, and it's a little easier, and it helps us, you know, at least keep those costs within that department. We can, you know, help monitor them.
I think that's probably an easier thing to track, right? Hotels and food and stuff like that. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems probably a little bit harder when you have just a regular Lowe's receipt that doesn't really have the specific items on there.
If it's from the store and you purchase it at the store, yes, that's what you do. If you do it online, then it actually lists out the items and says this is what it is.
If a receipt came in and there was, you know, let's just use sanders and screws and all that kind of stuff, and then thrown in there was like Visine, let's say, would that be something that would be questioned?
Yeah.
I'm stuck on the ceiling fan.
Yeah.
Maybe some sweat over here. No, so, ceiling fan example, only because it's been publicized. On something like that, you may have a question, right, wrong, or different if you did or did not ask. Do they have to give you a project that was used on? Hey, this was used at lot, whatever, or this building, like,
If it's
or is
a
it just
project, if it's a grant,
facilities?
well, if it's a grant, then we always list what the grant is, because we wanna tie expenses back to the grant. So like if it's the Walmart tree grant, anytime they buy trees, with that, we tie it back to that.
What
if
about a
it's-
ceiling fan though?
If it's a ceiling fan, they don't have to list out exactly, we're using this as replace for this.
That's
Yeah.
mine.
No, they don't.
Why would the head of a street department need a ceiling fan?
Now, if they choose to write that on there, that's great, but. But if it's like some vehicles, so I'll use vehicles for one. They always write on there which vehicle is it in connection to.
Were these 2 items questioned? Suzanne, and the clear reasons for using those two?
Obviously not.
I honestly cannot recall, I don't remember questioning them, no.
How do you document if you question something?
We'll either send an email or call them up, and then we make the notation on the receipt itself, yes.
Her, Joe, or whoever you spoke to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely think that a change needs to be tweaked or put in or something, because this type of incident has happened twice in less than 5 years, and something is broken. I don't know what that solution
I'll
is.
comment on the first incident, that was corrected. One of them was, oh, we won't get into details, but.
Right. It was corrected,
It was
yeah.
corrected, yeah, I mean, then so,
Once, okay, twice, something's broken.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you.
Well, that's
I'm
one.
not even caught it.
Really?
I think what, you know, probably a lot of us are struggling in, since it's been reported 700 plus items. You know, that's like an item, when you look at a 5-day work week, that's over a 3-year period, that's, I mean, you're getting close to an item every workday. And how did we miss that many items almost every day? I mean, do we need to change it to where anything is purchased, that it has to be approved first? Because it sounds like we've got several people signing off, but still not catching stuff.
Mm-hmm.
From employee to department head, from department head to finance to the mayor.
And I agree, like, when I look at an Amazon, what can you get on, well, I might ask it that way, so you can find anything on Amazon. What can I not get at Lowe's, Tractor Supply, Staples, Walmart? That's, I mean,
Well, I think maybe to answer your question, sometimes it's an immediate need versus even for 2-day delivery. But yeah, I get what you're saying. We got too many open accounts that too many people can access, that is accounting getting blasted with 6 different accounts with,
Well, that was gonna be
20
my
different
question, yeah.
purchases on each account, that if it was narrowed down or something, that it would make it easier on them if we were to,
And I'm just throwing this out there, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but what would it take to look over itemized receipts and to have itemized receipts?
Additional resources, to be honest, we are a team of 4, and we have a lot come through. And it's not just accounting we handle the front desk. We have the city website we take care of. I mean, there's something wrong in the building, they typically come to me, Pam, this isn't working anymore. I mean, we are stretched very thin. Additional resources would be great, yes, so we can say, okay, this is, whether it goes through one person and they look at it and say, okay, this is, all purchases go through that person and it has to be justified, then you do that. Because you don't want the same person who's doing the purchases processing a check payment. I mean, you got your segregations of duties that you have to look at. I mean, that's additional resources is what it would come down to.
We always say that we're growing as a city. At every meeting, we always say that. Maybe that's something that we need to look at. That has every receipt that comes through needs to be checked. Does it make sense? And then possibly going through the finance director and the mayor as the final sign off.
Now, are you, and I'm just asking the question, are you saying this for invoices, or are you saying receipts as in, because in your term, when you say receipts, to me, that is a credit card receipt, a Lowe's receipt. An invoice comes in because we may have gotten the items yet, but we haven't paid for it yet. In which sense are you talking about?
Right now, probably both, all, everything.
personally, I'd like to see anything with invoices reduced to a smaller group of people that can have access to.
Now, I would say there's gonna be some emergencies, right, for the fire department, for police department, emergencies, okay? Get that, we can, I'm sure they're smart enough to understand what is needed. But when it comes to Parks and Rec, or streets, or planning, maybe that's something that everything
should be approved prior to purchase.
Right.
I mean, there should be no purchasing unless these two have approved on the purchase.
And if it's a department head that's making that purchase, then it has to go, has to go through the finance director and the mayor.
So I can tell you with what you're saying as a department head, some of the departments, so I'll take fire for example, he won't do his own purchasing. He lets the person know who does the purchasing, hey, this is what I need. So they do the purchasing since he technically has to approve it. And this is through Amazon. So that's the only example I'm giving here is they have to do the purchasing and cause he has to sign off on it. So, I mean, some departments, that's what they have. I won't do my own purchasing. If Bill comes to me and says, hey, I need this, I'll run the purchase through it. If, I need something purchased or for like restocking supplies for the city, I'll have Erica do that, and she'll do that purchasing for me. So we try to stop that from the person doing the purchasing also being the one side, as much as what we can. Sometimes it doesn't always happen. Emergencies happen.
So we have not moved to the PO system where they have to request And that's where I think we talked
Yeah.
before in the situation that we were going to set up a PO process, so that has not been done.
Which would tie that to project measure, absolutely, yes.
But then you can also always have open POs,
You
like
can.
Yes.
correct.
going to Speedy Loot and getting your oil changed and stuff. And I know we don't have a large enough department for this, and please, anybody, finance, accounting, don't take this the wrong way. I know other communities, occasionally they say, you're taking a week off. And during that week, you know, they reconcile all the accounts. And why do they do that? To make sure that person's not making any mistakes on what they do. And I know we're pretty small, I think we're down to 2 people, so it'd be kind of hard to say, Pam, you're off for a week, and Shannon runs everything, but, you know, we do that vice versa, that way it's almost kind of like a impromptu audit to make sure that one person's not making any mistakes, and you rotate, you know, throughout the year on, okay, and it's not that it comes out of their vacation when you say, you're out for a week. You know, and I know other communities do that, to have larger accounting departments. And part of that reason is to make sure everything is flowing correctly and things like that. And also those people have access to the checkbook. And that's why I kind of waited on that last part, you know, I'm not trying to make any type of, but you know, because that's where your opportunity for fraud is. But maybe also to make sure, in our instance, purchasing's being done correctly. It's kind of, but of course, we probably need 2 or 4 or 6 more people.
But it sounds like it's like saying, hey, here's 30 days worth of purchases, look at it, is what I'm getting. I don't know if that's how anybody else is hearing it, but
That was my question.
ideally, if you're a department,
How many are you going through, let's say a day? How
Right.
many, and are they purchasing today and turning it in tomorrow? Do they have a guideline as far as they have to have it to you within 5 days after purchase? Or, you know, how many are you looking through, or is the front desk assistant looking through daily?
So,
I mean, just ballpark, I'm not asking for correct numbers, I'm just asking for ballpark.
it honestly depends upon what when in the year.
I know, like right now, everybody's using all the rest of their money, so it's probably.
So when it comes to invoices, I could probably say we might get on average maybe 30 invoices a day, 30 to 45. And again, it's all, sometimes it's really slow, we see 2 invoices. Sometimes they put a stack in because that's when they got turned in. But at the time when a purchase is made, if it's through a company that they have to send an invoice to it, we have an email set up to where they say we have them send all invoices to that email address. So that gives us an electronic copy. So, because, you know, we've run this into the past, I've lost it, it got
Right.
misplaced. And that just, so we have that copy, so where we can say, yes, we got it, and we put it in their box. Typically, at the time when we put it in the box, I usually have it turned in with that same day or the next day, just depends on when we put it in the box and when we get it to the office. And if you're talking the credit card, when we get that, we usually get the statement in the beginning of the month. At that point, finance assistant goes through it and says, okay, we know we have this, we have this, we have this, we're missing these ones. And then we send an email out to the department and we're missing these invoices, I need them turned in, and we give them about a week turnaround time. Because we always give us enough time to get it paid and give us time to go through it, so we're not rushing, saying we just gotta post it and get it done with. So it gives us some time to go through that.
I don't know if this is feasible, but when you have a department head that's spending money, I honestly feel like it's part of their duty to manage their business. And so if I'm a Parks and Rec department head, purchases that are made in that realm, I should be able to speak to the people that I manage. And so right now it seems like we're having purchases and we're all funneling to you, but in a sense, if you have all of these department heads, that's your leader to step in and say, hey, we spent $12,300 on this last month, and walking you through it, because what's happening is it's putting one set of eyes on it, whether it's you, finance assistant, I'm just saying, it sounds like we don't have that right now. But if we're spending these amounts of money, I would think the department heads would also be held accountable, and I don't know if that's currently in the conversation? Do they just send you the receipts, or do they actually walk through what they spent it on? Cause it sounds to me like it's just a
Some do and some don't, and I say that as in, if we have that conversation, what is this for? Some of them come in and say, hey, look, you know, I'm getting ready to trade invoice, this is what it's for, they give the information. If they've gone and talked to Bill and said, I wanna spend this, they don't have to tell me anything, you know, because they can say, well, I talked to Bill about it. I don't have to ask them and say, it's over 1,000, did you talk to Bill? That's not my job to make sure they talk to him. That is their job as a department head, because they know what their responsibilities are.
So is that done by email or just word of mouth?
If
it's over the $1,000, I guess that should
That'd
be
be
you.
They
Sorry,
do
Pam.
it
You're fine.
verbal, emails, you know, and then at the end, I always sign off on them too, so.
Okay, so if Joe calls you and says, hey, I'm at wherever and wanna spend $1,500, that suffices and it's okay?
Yeah, Joe, yeah, and I'll give you an example, Joe is getting his fire truck fixed. You know, he's there getting, you know, and he says, hey, it's gonna cost us $1,500 to repair it, yeah, get it done, I mean.
So we need to come up with a better system for that, because there needs to be better checks and balances on that as well.
Yeah.
Are these,
Where
Are
you,
you thinking like
you know,
emails?
Yes,
An email
that's,
form?
I mean,
Written
yes,
form?
yes, written.
Are these procedures that you described, they reduced to writing?
What do you mean? Are they written down?
you
as
kinda go
things?
through the step-by-step process of what's going on. Yeah, I know the mayor's hand is that, a portion of the code, that this is not specific to this.
Do I have a
I'm
sheet of
wondering-
paper that says this is the whole process?
Right.
No, I don't.
And that's kind of what I alluded to earlier, standard operating procedure,
Is it, so,
SOP.
okay, we don't have an SOP, that's not in the handbook at all?
Not in the policy, and I don't believe.
So,
it's-
so the departments come up with the SOP, it's not typically something we approve.
And right, and each department, according to the handbook, is supposed to have their day-to-day operations.
Right.
And that is supposed to be actually available to council members according to the handbook. And we don't have that.
You got an SOP for the fire department and the police department in the Dropbox.
That's not the ones that's making the purchases right now, though.
Yeah, I didn't even know we were supposed to have.
Well, I
an
understand,
SOP.
but that's one.
I think we need to
are having
evolve.
issues right there.
One thing
So there's action laws.
one thing that audit
Audit
asks for is what they call a segregation of duty, right, when it comes to finances. As a small city, and this is with any small city, it's really hard to reach that. It's something that comes up as a finding in your audits year after year after year. That's something that we, as we've grown, to your point, Amy, and we've gotten additional help in financing, we've gotten off of that list in audit. What I find from also a manager in the private sector, what makes it difficult, the more hands you get on it, hypothetically, at least you can't, you know, it should eliminate the opportunity for fraud. One thing that I've found is it's really hard to, then if there's a pattern of something, the more people that have their hands on it, it's really hard to gather that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You know, you want to segregate it out as much as you can segregate it out, so not one person isn't buying things, reconciling, you know, writing checks and all of that. The more hands that you get in it, if it's an ongoing thing, it's really hard. If there's not a
Right,
flow.
but-
Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Sorry, I may not be clear.
Well, a little bit, but
Yeah.
to your point, and this is why we're here, is something needs to change because something is broken.
Correct.
Something is not right, and.
I'm not saying that, I was
Right.
just saying it's because of what audit's asking you to do, in some sense, it makes it a little bit more difficult for you.
Right, and we can go back to audit and say, well, we got audited and the audit came back great, well, that's fine,
Yeah.
but there is a major breakdown in something that is happening within the processes.
Yes, I'm not questioning that, I'm just saying that kind of where we're at, we've got more hands in it, and so if it were if it were a pattern thing, the more hands you have in it, you're less likely to catch that. You know, if the financial director was to look at it one time and somebody else was to look at it the next time, you may not quite catch that. So part of that we've talked about tonight is to make sure we're categorizing things, whether it's a purchase order system or whatever, but just to add a point.
So I've had my coffee, I'm gonna keep going here. If we were to look at a standard month, I know that's hard to answer. How many what, a percentage, how many are the purchases are made over $1,000? Do we have them bucketed, maybe, you know, if we have 1,000 transactions in a month, how many fall in a bucket of 500 to 1,000, 1,000 and above, 500 or less? Is our threshold too high? Like, do we have an idea of that?
I don't have an idea to tell you this is what it is.
$1,000 is a lot of money.
It is, but, you know, are you saying that each item, so if you're saying each item, you could say, you know, case of water was purchased, that's not over 1,000. If you're looking at, we went to Jim's Fund and stocked up on supplies, that's over 1,000.
Let's do it by the trip.
By the trip.
I go to Lowe's and I spend $501. How many, do we have it bucketed?
I couldn't even tell you a percentage or a number that I would feel comfortable with because I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Justin, this kind of off to what you're, as far as you said something about Todd and Keith signing off at the mayor and you, or out. If they sign off on invoices where one of you guys are out, do you guys come back from your not being here and go through those that they have signed?
Yes.
Okay, so there is reconciliation of the ones
Yes.
that they have signed, and you go through the invoices of those that they have signed.
Correct.
And Misty, just to elaborate on that, if I come down and I sign a check, I just don't sign the check. I look and see what it is, and a lot of the stuff I know what it is because I make myself available and to the departments, and I'm down here a lot. And if it's something that I'm not aware of, I'll ask, what is this? And then I'm briefed on what it is, and so then I'm, okay, and then I'll sign off on it. I'm not gonna just rubber stamp a check. Unless, and I do come down here and I sign sometimes the payroll checks. You know, I figure that that's gone through at least 2 eyes already as far as what everybody's gonna get paid. And I wouldn't know, and they probably wouldn't know other than, okay, well, here's their pay sheet on their time sheet for this week. And then
That's
I
what
would
I'm
have to
asking,
look
who
at,
goes
you
back
know,
through after, because that's not truly you're not used to seeing the daily purchases, or nor is Todd, so I want to know that they look through those after y'all have signed those.
They do. So normally what happens also is we'll sign those. I know for me personally, I'm looking for a department head signature. I'm checking to make sure that the amounts are on, that they match what the check is versus what the invoice is. I'll look through it. Sometimes the things that we have that we would sign as a first signer, may not have all the details in it. Basically, we would sign, we verify that there's a department head, initials dated, we've reviewed what's on there. We may, again, it may be a set of numbers, or we may not know, and then we leave that here so that when the mayor returns, or if Pam returns, then they would come back and go back through that.
And that's what I'm asking.
Yep. So,
That's how the process.
so we have a budget planning session the 5th. What I would like to see on the 5th is if you take the last 90 days, I'd like to know by month, transaction count in those buckets. I don't care if it's under 250, but we have to find a way to bucket these. Because personally, when I look at 1,000, I think that's high. Like, I mean, you look at Parks and Rec, I understand, like, there's gonna be certain police, but it may be high. But what I'm also reading is it says, if the proposed expenditure has not been previously appropriated and budgeted, shall require approval of the city council. And so when I go back and I think, if you take the limit out of it, calligraphy pens. Where was that appropriated and budgeted? Because we have these
Is that what fell under miscellaneous?
under 1,000, like we have these out there. So even if we have them written on paper, where's the breakdown? And I understand there's a time and a place to answer that question, Brian, your point. But a calligraphy pen, a ceiling fan, like I mean, it says the mayor may have exclusive authority to approve all expenditures, whether or not they're appropriate. So I just wanna know, like, I feel like at some point, whether it's tonight or in the future, the community deserves to know, like, in these two examples, calligraphy pens and ceiling fans, what was the action? And I think that would help us all, because right now, if I'm being honest, this community is divided on many accounts for various reasons, and at some point, we have to reel it back in, and it's not gonna help unless we get an example like that and walk through it.
Or any of
And you're
these
gonna hear the
items on
passion,
state
when the public
audit.
comments come up, you're gonna hear the passion and the issues, and we're trying to fix it. But I mean, I would love to see above 1,000, how many transactions do we see? Cause I'm guessing that threshold's way high, is my guess. And if you wanna share, if that can be shared with us, I don't know, I love to do pivot tables. If that can be shared with us, I'd love to throw in a pivot myself and kinda do some digging, if I'm allowed to. I don't know if I'm even able to do that, Brian, but.
I don't know why we.
So,
I'd love to have
you
that.
guys approve financials every month, and we always tell you when they're out there, if you have questions, ask them.
And I think maybe you're looking at the transactions, like you said.
I'd love to have a transaction list out of our bank account last 90 days, and I can do some work and look at it.
And
But
I
I'm
can
telling
provide
you,
that, yes.
that threshold, at least in the interim, it's gotta change until we figure this out, is my feel.
Todd, when you come down and sign a check, I'm just trying to think of mine. When I've been down, I've never signed a check unless it's a payroll check that's been less than $1,000.
Anything that you signed that would be under $1,000?
Yes.
Yeah, I've signed plenty of things that would be under 1,000.
No, he's saying he hasn't signed anything over 1,000.
No, no.
Is that what you said?
Most of the, I'm trying to think, unless it's a payroll, I think most of the checks that I've signed have all been over 1,000.
Again, there might be
So
multiple
I think what
invoices
we
on the
might
check.
be,
So just remember that.
so if you look at, say, Amazon, say someone spends $500 today, $500 tomorrow, $500 following day, and then Pam gets an invoice, yeah, you're gonna sign a check for $1,500. I think what Justin's getting at is, we gotta figure out, okay, is $1,000 too much for that one day purchase? Anything over $500 has to be prior approval before it's purchased. Because right now, it's anything over $1,000, the mayor has to sign off on it. So if somebody hit $500 a day for 5 days in a row, they've spent $2,500. I mean, do we change even that, to where it's, anything over $1,000 a week has to be?
We set that down, bro.
And I think it's
we do.
too high.
That's what we set that through our policy.
And obviously, it's not working.
Do we change that?
So-
And I understand depending on the dollar amount we change, we're creating a ton of work for the employees, but at the same time, we might need to create that ton of work to protect citizens' tax dollars, so this doesn't happen again.
I would also like to just add, it's not, like I said before, it's not necessarily the dollars, it's the items.
Yes,
If the
yes.
items could get caught before the check is paid, I think that's where a lot of this would, not happen. If it's legitimate purchases and it's over $1,000 or it's $900, that's not really the problem. The problem is, what are the items that we're okaying? And if we get a receipt in and it just has a dollar amount and we're like, oh yeah, here you go, it could be, a bunch of stuff that is not needed. So I would like to see somehow, some way, items that get itemized and we're looking at that. And if it's gonna create a ton of work for the city, then maybe we need to even look at hiring somebody else that just looks at receipts. And then I'd like to see all of that then run through the finance director to get their approval on it.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm seeing, it's down at the item level.
Right.
Hey Lance, question. Parks and Rec, since the recent events, how many transactions above 1,000 have you had?
Since I've been in control?
Mm-hmm.
None. None. But you guys gotta keep in mind, and I've been back there and I've been listening. I had 22 years with the city. And what I'm hearing is I'm guilty by association. My integrity is in question because.
Did we say your name? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I haven't said a name.
Yeah.
I haven't even brought up Parks and Rec until now, actually.
No, I've just heard, that we wanna go to purchase a order on everything. And I'm hurt, not by you guys at all. This whole situation. I didn't get kicked in one part of my body, I got kicked in all of my body.
Yeah.
I feel really hurt, and I know there's integrity questions for everybody, because people say, I'm hearing the whispers, and I hear it.
Hey, running for
What-
re-election in the
what-
middle of that's fun too, I promise. I get it, like
I've
we're
got a
upset.
sinus infection, so please bear with me.
I said trying to run for re-election for the council, going through this too, that's why we wanna.
Oh, absolutely.
We're not pointing fingers, I wanna assure you that, like,
I'm behind you guys 100%. There should be an accountability process, and I have no issue with that. I mean, we met and we agree that there's gotta be something. And I don't have that answer, other than I don't really wanna do a purchase order for every nut and bolt that I got going on. You know, I'm asking not for that, because that will tie my hands. You know, Parks and Rec, they weed eat, they mow. Bolts break, belts blow, tires blow, we run over barbed wire, we run over sharp obvious glass. That stuff's gonna happen. The street department, you know, I know we blow a hydraulic pump, which we have, is $1,200.
but Lance, it's been a month and a half and you said you have seen nothing above 1,000 since since the former Parks and Rec, like, a month and a half. So I understand you run over barbed wire in the summer and stuff like that, but I would think if we see a lot of above $1,000 purchases, it would have happened in the last month and a half.
You ask Parks, and my parks have been closed, and I haven't for parks. You know, not in the last. Now, on the street side, I have. Culverts, 8 to 10-inch culverts, and you buy the flares and stuff. I think we just paid an invoice, it was $3,800, $3,600, $3,800 for 3 culverts. I signed that though.
Those are tied to projects too, just to verify in the process, right? If we buy three culverts, would you know which project those are used for?
If they tell me what street they go on and all that, then yes, we would reference that.
But we keep them in hand for emergencies. If we got short, we restocked our replenishment, because we know right now, off the top of my head, I can tell you about 3 roads that we plan on adding additional culverts, and then with this rain, we're gonna look at a couple more with this last flooding. It happened, and I don't know what to answer, but we're here to work with you, all the department heads are. We're here to work with you, and I know the staff's here to work with you. You know, like I said, I'm really crushed at this whole thing, and I've lost a lot of sleep. I've kind of withdrawn because I hear the whispers. I don't like the whispers.
The whispers from whom?
Just the public. Some of the staff. They have questions that I can't answer, and I wish I could. My own staff. I hid it from my staff for 3 weeks. I kept that to myself for 3 weeks. I had nobody to talk to. I go to bed at 11, get up at 2 in the morning, sit in my recliner. I lost sleep over this stuff. I'm ashamed of what happened. I'm appalled at what happened. But then we've had some people say, well, now we know why certain things got done to people that weren't even involved in it.
So let's stop there for a second, because if I go back to a public meeting a couple months ago, we talked about this issue. You guys have an HR department, right? So is that being, do those things get addressed?
Not the HR, because it's an open investigation, you could talk to HR.
It's supposed to be open door. Open door policy.
I think what Justin's asking, referring to
Yeah.
is before.
Yeah, like before. Before the investigation.
investigation, was this any of this stuff taken to HR, is what he's asking? If you guys have an open door policy, you go to HR to discuss things, like this is what I think he's asking.
I probably could if I did. I don't know.
Not blaming you. I think you have to feel safe to do it, and if you don't feel safe to, there's reasons. So that I'm just asking. Okay.
I don't know what the answers are, but we do spend over $1,000. I mean, it happens, you know, like I said, a hydraulic pump's $1,200. If I break all 3 spindles on the mower, that's right at about $1,100, and it's happened. We've gone out there and hit rebar that these contractors and developers have left in 3-foot grass, and we're mowing the right of ways, and we wrap that 5/8 rebar around it, and you just shear all 3 spindles. It happens. I know, you know, when you're talking about budget, you know, I know budget. We got a grader that's going back this year. It's on a 3-year lease. We got, well, 2022, it's going back. The tires, when it goes back, gotta be greater than 50% when we return it, or they buy the tires and put them on there. We can buy less expensive tires that meet the standard and put them on there than what they're gonna put. So we budgeted for that item. Them tires are over $1,000 a piece for the grader. The
Again, I think that's back to Justin's point, that's for a project. Right? So Lance.
It's in the budget.
Okay. I understand that you're upset and frustrated.
I'm not upset, I'm hurt.
You're hurt, right?
Yes, ma'am.
As a council member, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated at a lot of things that have happened. Like I said, in the less than 5 years, we've had a lot of financial stuff happen, especially this past year. So as a council member, I'm frustrated. I don't know what the solution is, except we need to figure out a new process. I also think there needs to be accountability on some things. Lance, you know, I've heard things too, and, you know, I'm hoping that if you knew anything prior to this investigation, you would have come forward and brought it to light before then. But I'm frustrated also, so we need to figure out what to do. So,
Well, and
if
Lance,
it's,
bringing the PO system up, that's protecting, it's gonna be more work up front, yes, but that is overall protecting you guys, to where we're not in this position. It's gonna make more work, believe me, cause that's what I do, I get it, but I'm looking out for you guys as a whole.
well, and our citizens too. And
We need accountability, we need transparency. If we do a PO system, there's gonna be open POs where you have, you know, or tires, you know, you're gonna have that. But as far as this stuff going on through Amazon, all that stuff, this stuff should be prior approval before any purchase is made.
And I think you want to include the department heads in a discussion to try to figure out what the best solution is. The other question that I have, that I'd love to find a solution for is, and this is manpower, right? Is that when you purchase something, it's approved, we've got it on a PO and it's approved, how do we make sure that it gets to what it's supposed to get to? You know, if we buy 2 of something or 3 of something, and Lance's point is that sometimes you need some backstop on some things. Culvert over a weekend, we're not going somewhere and buying a culvert on a Sunday, we need a culvert, we're gonna do what we need to do, so we need to have some backstop.
Which brings up a great conversation. How do we take inventory of the stuff we have?
Well,
Like-
I was getting ready to mention, and I don't, you know, some cities have warehouses.
Yeah.
And they keep shelf stock. So we learn after a while through tracking purchases that every year, we're going to purchase 10.
Cases of beet juice for the snow.
Right. So, and if you have those items already on your shelf, and then you have reorder points. Let's say all of a sudden we used, even though we typically only use, you know, 10 cans of beet juice, but as soon as we use 6, we immediately order more. That's your reorder.
Managing your seasonality.
Right. So like if you're needing nuts, bolts, screws, and hammer, you've got some stuff in a warehouse, and so, you know, and maybe, you know, and when a department goes and takes something from the warehouse, that is then charged back to a line item in their budget, you know, so it's just not like we're purchasing a bunch of stuff, each department just goes and willy-nilly does anything, but, you know, you 10 hammers on hand, all of a sudden you've used 6, you reorder, you know, still got 4, but you order 6 more, so you're always keeping a certain level of shelf stock you know, and then you got some control over the spending because you can, large purchases typically get a discount versus each department ordering their own hammer. You know, or tires, if you know, you typically go through 20 tires in a year, we'll have 20, you know, maybe we'll only have 10 tires just in case you get a different lawnmower and all of a sudden the tire size changes, you know, so we're not, but then again, when you get down to 3 tires, you order, you know, some more.
Yeah, I mean, if you think through that, Lance, I know that there's been some challenges, like obviously having one person down. You know, you're not mowing right now, you're doing other things with the crew. But what a great time at the end of the year to recalibrate and understand, okay, what's our warehouse inventory look like, culverts, whatever it is. Mulch bags for the playgrounds for next summer, like understanding those things. And to Darren's point, like at some point we gotta be able to speak to it, you know? Because if we're just ordering mulch left and right, well, I mean, if we know how many bags we use on average, then how do we use taxpayer dollars efficiently? If, hey, this year, we didn't build any new playgrounds, but we use 50 bags of mulch, and next year we use 460. Like, being able to speak to that.
Well, I'm glad you asked.
You wouldn't know the mulch, though.
No, we haven't. We went to iWorks this year. It's a program that I went and asked. We haven't. I can tell you how many 18, how many 24s, how many flares, how many couplers I have, how many bolts I have for them bolters. I can tell you how many chainsaws, how many weed eaters I got to make my little cereal numbers. What years they were purchased and how much they were. I can tell you the lawnmowers, the cereal numbers. In a matter of seconds, I can tell you what I have on my website. If I use it, we do a work order. We're going to put a culvert on Motley Road. We make a work order for Motley Road. Install 18-inch culvert. That culvert gets taken out of inventory and assigned to that job. And I'm saying, not I, but we set the parameters. When we get to 2 culverts, boom, an alert comes up, it says time to reorder.
Even better.
We reorder. We have that. We have all
I do not mean to be rude, but we're not here for a budget meeting. We're here to try to fix this problem.
Yeah.
So we understand that budgeting needs to be done, but this is a question of misappropriation of funds.
Yeah, sir, so I understand that and I appreciate your comment. What I would say is it's also important to hear from the people in the business too, or I'll call it a business, running Parks and Rec, on what's the process look like for them, so we can better understand what suggestions would we make. And so that's why we walk through one example.
We're not doing process though, we're just going over what inventory should be and how we should run our department, not how the accounting side should be run.
So the way the budget can play into this is we can get very much more specific on what we allow to be purchased through the budget. If it ain't a line item, then they come back to us to a budget adjustment. So that's how part
That's
of
why
this
I would like
process
to
can
see,
play
that's
through.
why I'm questioning the miscellaneous ones.
Exactly.
Because
Thank you, Lance.
I want a line item for every thing that comes through.
I think that'd be very difficult, but I think maybe for larger purchase items and, and you tighten down the budget a little bit, that all of a sudden if they've only got $5,000 for miscellaneous, but they've got $10,000 in office supplies, if they come to us for a budget adjustment, we wanna move $5,000 out of office supplies into this other line item.
I do wanna bring something up, and I don't know if it was Pam or Bill that said that. Do we have like a credit card checkout type thing, and what does that look like? Are we using it?
Those are only for the cards that are in my office.
So what cards are those again? Is that like a Walmart or?
We have the Walmart and the Sam's Club card because that's the membership itself. And then I have a Lowe's card in there as well. I don't have a Tractor Supply, that's just not an account with them. We tell them that we wanna purchase something, they put it on the account to be safe. But it is the Walmart and the Lowe's.
What is the checkout process? What does that look like?
If they come in and they say, hey, I need to get the card, they know where the checkout is, I have it, off to the side, and they have to, okay, the date they're checking it out, who's checking it out? And then if it's like the Walmart or Sam's Club, if it's the Walmart card, they can either use it to pay at Sam's Club or at Walmart. And they say, okay, I'm using it for Walmart, so they're gonna check that. And then when they come back, they say, okay, this is the date I'm checking it in, and this is the dollar amount.
Okay, and so we are using that.
I am, yes.
Okay.
Is that something we can see it sometime?
Yeah, come on now.
Last question I'll ask, so we can move on to if anybody else has. So I would love to see the last 90 days. Actually, let's just do 120 of expenses, maybe ledgers in the bank account. And I'd like to personally be able to pivot and look at it, if that's okay.
So, I would love for you guys is when we give you the financials, if you have a question on it, please email me back or let Bill know, especially before council. And I can pull all the data that you want that says, this is what's making up this line item. This is what were the purchases for the month for materials and supplies under you name the department. I would be happy to share that with you so you guys see what you're looking at when you approve your financials. If you have the questions, we can answer them because, you know, if you were to ask me and say, hey, what was purchased? And if it was purchased the first day of the month for the previous month, I'm probably gonna need to go look and say, okay, what was that? And I'm not gonna remember it off the top of my head. If it's a big item or something that stands out, I can say, oh yeah, that was for, and let you know. But please ask that, wanna see that stuff, I'll be happy to share.
Last two questions, I promise. How quickly can we get on the PO process? Would be my first question.
That's gonna take some research to see and to see what systems would allow it. I have to do some research on it, and I can put it on the top of my list of things that to look into.
That, I think that would be good to have for the January council meeting. And then two, I think we have to find some kind of a solution tonight, at least to minimize. Is there any way to move the thresholds down, whether it's 500 or 250? I know it's a lot of work, but we owe it to, until we figure out a process.
That has to be done by ordinance.
Okay.
So it would have to be, we have a special meeting tomorrow.
Can we at least take hands out of the fire for how many people have access?
What's that?
Can we at least, I mean, there's 12 credit cards, 5 different retailers. Can we at least reduce who has access to that?
Well, that's not in the code, so since we don't have an operator.
I don't think anybody needs access to Amazon, but 1 or 2 people at this point. Credit card counts. There's too many hands in the fire on all of this, and so I don't know.
I agree, and I have another question, Mayor. Do you only approve the checks, the amount? You don't approve, like when the credit card comes through, you're just approving the check amount?
Yeah, I get a check for the total amount of the purchase.
Okay.
Or several different checks, depending on what account they come from.
Okay.
Yeah, I do that. So how do you know if it's not appropriately budgeted and shall require your approval to our code?
I mean, when we get the receipts, they'll say coming out of whatever line item it comes out of, so it is.
Okay.
And you look at every single one that comes through?
On the credit card, that's spot check, because it's stacked, like you were just mentioning, 30 days worth of deal, that thing.
But even though that is your job though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think maybe we should look at every single one that comes through?
Yeah, if we want to hire some more people, we get, yeah. But I tell you, I get 100 checks a month, or 100 checks a week.
So you're gonna hold this hostage?
Well, if you're a finance director, it should not be what you do.
Every single
Bingo.
invoice on the credit card.
And that's what I'm asking Pam, just if she's got checks or if she
I
doesn't know.
look at them because I'm looking at it as one, does it make sense? And two, does it make sense of where it's being charged to?
Here's what I would like to propose, and I think we can, I'll just propose this, or this, not propose, this is what I think we should put in the handbook or a process. Everything that comes through right now needs to go through the finance assistant, they need to look at that. And then it has to be approved by the finance director. And then also the mayor needs to look at the final process. That's the only way that, I mean, unless there's another way to look at everything, because this can't happen again. I'm not seeing any accountability happening.
You're just
And
wanting to
without-
blame somebody. You don't care what the.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Liz, stop.
Is there anybody
Yes,
guilty?
I think-
Everybody will have an opportunity during the
Sorry.
public
Done that
comment.
again tonight.
I think there needs to be, yes, I do think there needs to be accountability, but I think that process needs to be changed. That's what I think needs to happen. everything needs to be looked at, every single one needs to be looked at. Finance director needs to approve the final sign off, and then he needs to go to the mayor for the final sign off.
I think what I would like to propose, since it's been stated that the council doesn't know what's going on, I would like to propose that each one of you come down here and see what's going on firsthand. And then you would understand, I mean, it's fine.
Understand that errors get made, okay?
No. Okay, forget I said it. I'm just gonna make a mockery of it. I've been down here a lot. People don't sit
That's the
around
problem.
down here and do nothing. And when Pam said that you're gonna need more resources, she exactly meant what she said.
But why aren't we prioritizing that versus buying all this equipment and things, Keith? If that's what we need, resources go before things that we've approved for expenses.
Well, I don't have a problem in hiring somebody else. The thing that I'm sitting here thinking, and I've heard, is we need somebody that approves everything that's bought.
Yes.
Here's my issue with that. You're gonna pay somebody to go to school to learn fire, police, everything that has to do with streets, everything that has to do with
Keith, what is your
cars.
solution then?
Common sense don't play into it, does it?
Okay, since you're interrupting, let me ask you a question.
Certainly.
Do you know what goes on a fire truck? Do you know what goes in a police car? Do you know what it takes to run the street department? Do you know what it takes, what the building inspector needs?
Hey, guys, let's
So
reel
if
this
you
in.
don't, that's what I'm saying.
I may not know right now,
Matt,
but I
hold on,
can
Matt.
give you an answer in a day.
Matt, hold on one second. I think when you look at department heads, their job is to be equipped to speak to expenses, and you're not the expert. You are a generalist, your department heads are your specialists. They can speak to, hey, I need a fire pump truck, and here's what I need. I know nothing about a fire pump truck, but they are the experts, and they speak to that. And if we equip them and empower them to ethically do the right thing, I mean,
you're still asking.
Then a finance
to
director
put
can make an informed
somebody there
decision.
That knows and is gonna go over those.
no.
Okay, what do
If
you-
I buy
I think you're missing
yeah.
the point, Keith, in that if we budget for a pump to go on a pump truck, or if a pump goes out and they come and ask us, we need a pump, okay, we either approve that new purchase or it's already a budgeted item. I think the issue is we had over 700 items that were purchased that weren't budgeted for, and that's the issue. I don't think you need somebody that specializes in fire, specializes in street. You gotta figure out the review process of these individual items being purchased, and nobody caught it.
We need a different check and balance, is what we need.
We need a check and balance.
I definitely think we need to know when we can get running on the PO process. That's like a non-negotiable. I mean, to your point, I agree with what Amy said, but do we lower the threshold for the interim?
And we got a council meeting coming up on the 5th, and
Yep.
if we get an
That's
ordinance
true.
put together at that time. And then
It's a work session.
I can make it
we can make it
special
a,
meeting if you want me
make it
to.
a special meeting.
I mean, you want me to, I will.
Or we could wait till the regularly scheduled meeting, and then,
A week later.
a week later. Either one, I guess, if we wanna make the budget meeting a special meeting, or if we wanna wait till the regularly scheduled meeting and have an ordinance put together to change the threshold that requires, the mayor's approval.
I would also like, maybe, in our work session, we have the department heads there. Yeah, maybe the department heads come at that work session, kind of give us their day-to-day operations and what they do, and then at our meeting, we can make a special ordinance.
I think it's a great idea.
So you want me to lower the threshold?
I think it'd be nice to
500?
have the checks and balances within the department as well.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I think it would be nice to be able to do that
Well,
just
we-
for the fact.
I'd suggest maybe 100,
Yeah, I mean,
until you get it figured out, Bill.
I think that kind of the key point is, if the fire department knows fire department equipment, it'd be nice to have a checks and balance within the fire department to bring it to, when it gets to the finance department, they are not, to your point, experts on fire equipment. To your point, if we budgeted this, if we worked on the PO system, I think that's a great idea. Again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how, on the backside of that, how do we verify that it made it to where it needed to? Because who's to say that these items weren't budgeted? You know what I mean? That the budget wasn't set to allow for something like that. So we need to be able to, I think that's where the check and balance within the department would be super helpful.
Well, and I think that's part of the monthly council meeting. We walk through where we are for the year. I mean, if we need to take some time and slow down on that section each month and say, hey, look, we are 2 months into the year. We've spent this. Oh, here's some things that came up we didn't quite expect. Ordered 20 new tires, like, I think that if we need to slow down on the budget piece during the year, maybe we do that, because I mean, the elephant in the room, I'm not speaking for the citizens here, but until we earn some trust, guys, let's be honest, this is a tough city to live in right now, and I promise you, I have 2 daughters and my wife, and I wanna live here peacefully. I don't want emails every day saying, I know where you live, like, we get that. And so at the end of the day, we don't all do things perfectly. I just wanna address that. We're trying. I know there's situations where we're frustrated, but as we go through this public speaking in the next little bit, like, try to be solution oriented. We know that there's things wrong. But partner with us on, if there's solutions that you guys feel like, hey, this may be it, like, let's partner. Our goal is to be your voice, but also please let us know.
Well, and it's our job as council, or I should say, it's not our job. Council members don't know the day-to-day. That's not part of our duties. The mayor has told us that. It's not part of our duties, but it is part of our duties to understand what the process is and how we can fix that. So that's what we wanna do, is just make sure that we do have a check and balance and that this doesn't happen again. This can't happen again.
But I think if we're having an issue at 1,000, we don't need to just drop it to 500. I think it needs to be lower.
Yeah, I mean.
No, I agree. I agree.
I would say, okay.
Until we can figure a process out, I'm aligned.
The only thing I say to that is,
Fuel's gonna be tough on that, but I think.
we go too low, and it's not, I'll come here every night. If we go too low, we will be here every night, because item C, if it's not budgeted, then we're approved for. If somebody wants a bottle of water, and we didn't appropriate those funds for a bottle of water, costs $1.50. Now, I'm happy to come every night, because you realize you go too low. You really handicap our employees to be able to operate efficiently. I don't disagree, we should lower it, we might need to look at lowering it, make it harder to layer purchases.
I mean, one of our own citizens said $100, like, I understand, like, you can't fill a truck up for that, but you get the point, it's gonna stop it in the interim, hopefully.
But the receipt for the gas at the gas station or wherever we're getting gas is gonna be, we're gonna know what that receipt is.
But it's still over the amount.
When you guys look at the ordinance that we have, you'll notice in each section at the bottom, it tells you the year of the ordinance, so you'll see that we've made adjustments. So the same thing would happen, so if you guys decide to change an amount of spending, we do it in the form of an ordinance in a public meeting, and then it would just be adjusted, amended, and
Okay, well, I mean, maybe we'll listen to some public comments and get back to you on the amount, but in the interim, how can we immediately stop who touches Amazon?
Real quick, I know we're waiting for public to talk. Why would you not be able to designate one purchaser at this point in time until it gets under control? You have a department head that could be the one purchase man that is accountable until we have something reconciled and fixed.
Yeah, no, I think
That would be
that's-
real easy to do, to give that one person that ability to make those decisions.
That's what we're trying to say. I agree with that. I think when it gets to like the city credit card though, there's too many hands in the fire. That probably needs to cut down to one.
So in regards to Amazon, I can put a suspension on the account.
No, I would love that.
Cities
I think that's a great idea.
But, so one of the processes when it comes to, and this is just so you guys are aware, and one of the processes when it comes towards the end of the year is I give all department heads a cutoff date of, you need to have invoices turned in by this date and guaranteed to be paid. Anything after that, we're not making promises on, because we're not gonna break our backs to try to get an invoice that you turned in at 4:58 on a Friday afternoon to be done by the end of the day. So that cutoff date is Monday, so if it comes in after Monday, like I said, we're not guaranteeing that's gonna be paid. So, I mean, I could just say then, after Monday, we're not paying it until the following year. I can do that.
I'm
that-
not
I
saying
mean,
paying, I'm
that-
saying expenses.
I know, but I mean, I'm saying if that gives you that, what you're trying to say, how do we kind of stop this, as in, then you just don't pay it at that point, but because all monthly payments that are due, like your water bill, electric bills and all that, those have all been paid, we meet those. The stuff that comes in is the invoice, and they say you have.
But those
you know,
items have already
term
been
dates.
received. If you've received that invoice, those items have
Yep.
already been received, correct? So those bills will have to be paid.
Mhm.
Because we don't need late fees on all of that, so those are gonna have to be paid.
You're talking about new purchases, right?
Right, correct, new purchases need to be.
Jesse, do you have any
Anything going
thoughts?
forward.
Yes, I do. The things that I've jotted down here, as far as what I would classify as actionable items, SOP, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting off track here a little bit. PO systems, to do some research on that. We've talked about the number of credit cards, be it by Sam's Club, Walmart, Amazon, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, Staples, and also the amount that are able to be charged on those credit cards. And, exploring an additional employee, if we're gonna, put some additional steps in place here, then we're gonna have to look at resources. And these are some topics that we need to, work through today and for this evening. We've also talked about inventory and storage, and how we've got an inventory process now, it's called iWorks, that seems to be working well. Is there anything, we can build off of that?
And do you have like any thoughts on, do you have like share
Solutions.
any solutions, correct, on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with the SOP. Agree with PO system to research in. I'm just a little bit uncertain on as far as the amount. I mean, are you talking a PO system that every single thing would need to be run through there? Yes,
Or even with an open PO, there's still a PO number assigned to that, so you immediately know what line item in the budget it goes to. So I've got a PO number for going and get my oil changed in my city truck. So when Speedy Lube turns that into the city, they know exactly which department it goes to. They know exactly what line item it goes to, so if all of a sudden, for some reason, gosh, why Darren get his oil changed 3 times in the last 3 months, and now we're out of money, because it's like, okay, they know how many miles I typically put on my truck every year, so they know exactly how often I need to get my oil changed. So that, I mean, it can create red flags also within the budgeting system.
sure. I think the number of credit cards, that needs to be reviewed as far as how many do we have out there for each of these different areas. The amounts, I agree that the amount needs to be changed, reduced. I'm not comfortable with $1,000.
Mayor, what are your thoughts?
We'll follow this up. You gave us a lot of good ideas, and
What are your thoughts though?
as far as,
You're the mayor of the city, I just wanna hear what your perspective is.
yeah,
We're voicing our opinion as a council, I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are.
my thoughts are, I need to be putting trust in my department, which apparently I have, and I was let down here on this one. But, like Lance runs those, he comes to me, says, I need this. Never had any issue with these guys. Like I said, I don't understand,
They don't make an issue because of something like this that pops up. I'm just trying to think, do you have any ideas on how can we shut some of this down, like effective?
We got some ideas, on the cost, and we've actually, our department heads, I've met a couple times with them, and they recommended some of the same things on the POs, and I didn't know there was such a thing as an open PO, because that might help us track, like you said, 3 oil changes, 5 wrenches, or, I never seen these things, so. that might give us a better tracking system, and, you know, like I said, Pam will, you know, look at some options, we'll bring that back to you. If she has it in January, maybe we do have a person too, to, you know, have a purchasing, I don't know what that person would be called.
We can discuss.
Yeah, we can discuss that, we could discuss that after we find out what, you know, what Pam finds out, but I mean, that might give us better tracking.
What's the limit per credit card that we have in the department heads?
It depends on the credit card. Like I said,
Can we
if
shut
one-
everything down and just have a credit card for the department heads?
So only each department head has
Yeah.
only their card in that.
Until we show that we're fiscally responsible, absolutely.
I mean, yes, I can do that, I can say, okay, if it's, you know, not one credit card per department, all other ones, like I said, like fire PD, they have two, those need to be turned back in then, and I lock them up,
And it's unfortunate for the people who actually weren't taking advantage of this, but I'm saying until we prove, not just to us, but them, we gotta do something. And I think that's drastic, but achievable if you give the department head a credit card, shut down Lowe's, Tractor Supply, Staples, Amazon. You can control the Staples piece, I'm guessing, because it's probably office stuff.
it is office stuff, I mean, some other departments use it not very much, but that, I mean, and quite honestly, so when we do purchases, we look to say, where is our best dollar gonna be?
Yep.
We just don't go to the first place, I mean.
Right, but you can use a credit card
Right,
anywhere.
yeah, but,
Right.
for like, what I'm saying is like with the Staple account, that's all done online, there's not a card that we can go to the store and say, here, run this, it is all purchased online. And then they get shipped to the city itself. So, you know, in that case, then yeah, we're mainly going to use it because animal, I don't think they use Staples office supplies as much. If they need pad of paper, you know, they'll come down here and swipe a pad of paper.
But how do we pay for Staples?
It's done, they send a statement at the end of the month, and I say, okay, what was purchased, what department, who signed off on it, and then we do it that way. Same concept, just, it's still an itemized receipt or invoice.
Yeah, I said my piece, I think we should.
I'd still like to see checks and balances within the department too, like a second, so that even before it gets to financial, that there's, you know, whether it's a chief and a captain, or it's the director and the assistant, I'd love to see that, so there's some accountability within the department.
Totally agree.
Well, I'm just trying to do something, it's not something I think we can discuss within the department, before it gets to that, I want, you know, I mean.
And obviously, a department head needs to have a check and balance
accountability
also.
down through the line, but I'd love to be able to see that from the people who are the experts in the departments, whether it's police or it's fire or whatever, I'd like to see that as well.
Now, how would we do gas purchases? I mean, if you just have one credit card,
So,
is there?
if we go to the PO system.
Yeah,
Well, I
but gas
just meant now,
purchases,
'cause I know
gas
we're reducing the
purchases
number of
right now
credit
are
cards.
done through Fuel Man. So the card itself is tied to a vehicle, and each employee has a PIN, and they have to put in, and what they do is they say, okay, what's the odometer reading? Here's the PIN, and then the machine will say, okay, good, you're good to go, and it'll pump gas.
So I guess that takes care of that.
Mhm.
Well, what's the rest, I mean, that's my thoughts. Keith, anybody else, okay?
I agree, I think all credit cards should be just what is needed. I don't think we need an Amazon card right now.
Lowe's, Tractor Supply, Staples, Walmart.
So Lowe's, Public Works is the one that mainly uses that because they need those, you know, those items, the nuts and bolts, and if you're saying, okay, they don't need it or something like that.
Why can't they use a credit card, the department head?
The city credit card? No, they use, no, it's a Lowe's card.
No, shut it down, use Lowe's credit, or use our, I mean, that's one less card, that's the way I look at it.
I mean, they have a credit card, right?
Yeah, that's the city credit card.
Okay, can't they use that?
They can use that, yes.
Absolutely.
So,
I think that's, if you guys
Get a
know.
discount for using those cards.
You do, and that's, well, you
Yeah.
have to make a transfer.
Hey, let's, yeah.
For now,
I
yes.
see what you're saying.
We got a
I'll say
$62,000
discount.
Everything needs
So
to
far.
sit down for the time.
As far as credit cards go, credit cards for the audit are not the preferred method of payment.
Right.
Invoice is the preferred method of payment for audit. So if we shut down all of those things, then we're going to be going against what the preferred method of payment is. So that's my 2 cents on that. That's why we purchase things through Amazon, because it can be invoiced. And also, the reason why I purchase things through Amazon for the PD, because I get a detailed list of what is on that order.
But can you use the Amazon account and the city credit card for that?
But we're still going against the preferred method.
But you have an invoice because you're buying it off Amazon with a receipt.
It's a credit account. So ultimately what we have is a credit account.
That's
It's
all
like
I'm
any
saying.
store. And so you go there and you purchase your items and then it gets invoiced, just like we would for, you know, you take a part out of HIS. When the oil change is done, you get invoiced for that, and we pay that right away.
Well, maybe, Cody, maybe, I mean, I get it, maybe this makes us move quicker as a city though, and get answers on PO stuff, and within the next couple weeks, and
The
it's not
balance
paying
that,
for a long time.
and this is something that everybody has to weigh here, the balance on this is, one, the hindrance on the employees. Because this would be on the hourly employee, this is a big hindrance as far as being able to go out there and do these things that we need to do to make these purchases. Now for us, every single purchase the police department has to go through, period. So I know and I can tell you what it was, why it was purchased and stuff. You know, so we have that right now. As far as, you know, regardless of what it is. The reason why is because like I said, for the employees themselves, because you ask me a question, I say that answer word and why that purchase was made. So anytime that we have any kind of accounts, credit cards, credit accounts, anything like that, if somebody is given, you can call it authority, trust or whatnot, there's always the availability for something to go negative with that. That's the human condition. If we would learn from our past mistakes as a society, we wouldn't be doing these things over and over and over again.
Okay,
So,
we'll come with an amount, I think, next month, cause I mean, I think, again, this isn't about the amount, but I think having $1,000 threshold, just throwing it out there is saying, hey, we can't pay this right now. Let's just go ahead and charge it on something, not saying police departments.
I have no care in the world for the credit cards, cause we try to use those as least as possible.
And you use mostly, what do you use mostly?
Amazon.
Amazon? Okay. And then with Amazon, just to be clear, it has a list of everything that you purchase.
Correct.
And goes through finance to be looked at.
Yeah, every message
Yeah.
I'll put them in the invoice box and go from there.
Okay.
But I've obviously seen it.
Yeah.
I think before we do, that was public comment, I think Todd wants to say something. You wanna talk about?
Public comment?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that, so we want to go to executive session. but-
Yeah, hey, listen, one thing I would say, I mean, we haven't made a decision, we've talked about it up here, like, I know there's frustration out here, there's emotions. Please feel free to use the 3 minutes that you have, if there's ideas. I mean, John, you work at corporate Walmart, like, I know there's people out here that have ideas, like, throw them out there. Like, let's talk, we'll take the first part, I'm sure, but like, bring ideas up, like, we're here to listen, that's all I would say.
So I would just ask, number one, from council, if you guys would please respect the public, please respect council, respect each other. We will do 3 minutes. If you guys would like, I can just give you a 30-second, notice, so that all of you will have time to speak, tonight. And again, if we'll just be respectful, if not, we'll ask you to leave. You can't be respectful for each other. That's for all of you and for all of you as well. So they've listened to us, so let's listen to them and appreciate it. And I'll be keeping the time.
You're not gonna say their name and address too?
You don't have to, yeah. If you're gonna speak tonight, I do need you to make sure that you're signed in, name and address, so that I can get it in the record. And then if you'll state that at the beginning of the recording.
Anybody? Come on up.
I would just come up, make a line if you'd like.
Hi, Jamie.
Jamie George, I live at 1017 Thornhill Circle here in Centerton. I've listened to all the conversation here and 2 lands. Nobody here is blaming anybody that's working. There's nothing to be heard about. We're here because of what happened. Y'all are here to try to fix an issue. PO system will help that issue. Your fuels, you're concerned about fuel, how to handle it. It's called a fuel flight card. You put in your mileage, you put in your ID number, and you're limited how many gallons you get per purchase, and it's tracked. I work for a big organization that track all their fleet like this. We're set up to buy tires through a business. They track what we do. They keep in stock what we need. So we don't have to run down and buy something that isn't there. you stock an inventory on hand, you get a handle on what you need. I think you're choking on that here when you talk about nuts, bolts, screws. That's ridiculous. That's common sense stuff. What we're talking about here is stuff that's not checked, stuff that's not written off on, stuff that's not, you hadn't put in a budget for, there's no accountability from what I'm hearing. And this town's growing, it's not a town anymore, this is turned into a large community now. We're at 18,000 people. Yes, you need more personnel in city. You can't run it lean and mean, you might have somebody that's accountable. And yet last week, something was talked about tax money. Well, this is tax money to the city. It needs to be accountable. This is not Joe Blow's place anymore. This is Centerton, Arkansas. This is the fastest growing community in Arkansas at the present time. I appreciate the people here. I appreciate my council. I'm not gonna come up here and throw a fit and holler. I'm going to email you. I'm going to voice my opinion. If I've got a solution, I want to offer it out there. Don't be closed-minded to a solution if somebody throws it out there. You people are elected by the people. You're there because you're there, but we have to keep you accountable, or else we're not doing our job. So right now, there's a lot of iffy stuff about the city that we don't feel comfortable about. There's been too many black eyes, even the past 2 months, that I'm not gonna get into, but everybody knows what's going on. So please listen to what we say. We're not a bunch of podunk people. We do know some things, and please be open to it.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Hello, Jason McCoy, 1261 Clydesdale. Thank you all for letting me speak. I apologize for cutting in, but sometimes my mouth overrides my.
It comes
my
on
tail.
3 minutes.
Okay, a couple of things.
He's got 2 minutes starting out, Tom.
30 seconds, okay. Knowing that I'm coming late into this game, and I apologize. I feel horrible as a citizen for not getting involved when I moved to Centerton. And I feel bad for myself and everybody else. So I feel like I'm playing catch up with some of the issues that the city has overcome in the last several years and is now about ready to overcome again. I'm hoping to change that. I'm gonna be way more involved in this. And I hope everybody in this room that showed up tonight takes heed and starts showing up for these meetings. Because without all of us, we're never gonna get anything done. My question is, and it's just basically a statement, in the public sector, I'm held to accountability. I have purchase orders, I have a credit card, I have, on my personal credit card for my company, I have a $20,000 limit. I could go out and buy whatever I wanted to, but I'm held accountable. I have to turn in my receipts, I have to turn in a purchase order for each one of my purchases. Whether it's a bottle of water, or if it's a pack of gum, or if I buy somebody lunch or dinner, I've got to be accountable for it. So a PO purchase system is phenomenal. It is a lot of work, but once you get it started and set up, every department can have their own purchase order department. Parks and Recs 1001, Streets is 1002, and you just go from there. Open POs are phenomenal, especially for small purchases like gas, nuts and bolts, the everyday purchases you have to do. But you do have some large capital expenditures that can be busted out into different categories, so you know how to categorize them and know where they go. So that's, to me, a PO system is the only way to go. That way you have your checks and balances. That's kind of what I've got on that. I didn't understand what the Amazon with the police department was. Is it an open account? Like we have a charge account with them? Or is it, how does that work? What's the process on that? Is it like I said, is it like we have a $20,000 limit like you would have if you had a loan or what have you? I would like to understand how that works. Because it could be purchased by every time you buy something, it could be charged to that credit card, attached to a PO, and you can still do the same things that you're doing with an account, yet everything's tracked. I would like to see that, or at least a report on that. And last thing I want to go over, and I know we're talking about current things, but I've just now recently got some information about some past audits that were ran through the city. And I have some real quick questions for you.
30 seconds.
Okay. In 2019, which of you were on the board member at that time? Okay. Was this audit addressed completely? top to
So
bottom.
that's not an audit, those are notes that
Okay.
Mr. Rabel took
I
from
understand, I understand that, I
investigators.
understand, but these are some items that scared me. Did we account for the $8 million was on there?
I asked, if it's the same thing that I've got right here that you got, from, Mr. Ellis, is
Yes.
that what you're? I went through just, and some of the other council members went through just about every bullet point on that list.
Right, did we get a resolution? I mean, $8 million is a lot of money. Do we know where that went? Has it been accounted for? Has it been reconciled?
I don't know what you're talking about, eight million.
You've got $8 million in a balance account for based on deposits that aren't accounted for. In your notes, in your bullet points. So if this is something I got from the city.
I think that might have been a typo, I don't recall anything
No,
about
it's
it being
not a
a
typo.
typo. Remember, this wasn't an official
came from
report,
here.
this is notes that somebody took and then gave to us.
Right, okay,
So
so
there
then,
could have been a typo.
is, typo or not, that's concerning that there's missing funds, not accounted for, okay?
If you, one thought, if you got one other you wanna give, then.
No, I'm good, I'm good,
Thanks.
thank you, I appreciate
Hey,
it.
hold on 1 second. The expense, you had success with certain systems that you'd suggest?
Well, there's not really systems right now. Obviously, each one of your department heads, I think, needs to put an SOP together,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah, I agree.
accountable for it. All my department heads do, and everybody that I work with all has an SOP. But just a simple, I mean, I use an AccuLinks
Okay.
type of system in what I do now, and it tracks purchases, but there's many systems out there, and they're all QuickBooks integrated, so literally, everything that you put into, you can assign all your department heads, each one of them, and then each one of the underlings underneath that would have also access to input information. And then it funnels its way into QuickBooks, and they all talk to each other.
Thank you. I think that's important, because if we have another meeting and talk through that, I mean, we can connect you documents and understand how that works. So.
Yeah, thank you.
I know 3 minutes is really quick, but remember, email us if you miss something, forget something, don't get an opportunity to talk. And remember, email us, all of our emails are available, so if you run out of 3 minutes, you got more time.
Hello, I'm Carmen Navarro, I live in Tuscany.
Yeah, can you give me the address?
1341 Montieri Drive.
Got it.
Thank you so much for having this meeting. I think it's important for us, the residents of this town, to know what's going on. There has to be transparency. It's very important because we are trusting you with our money. Growth is exciting, but with growth comes responsibility. We have to be diligent. We can't be waiting until things happen to react. There are other cities our size, maybe we can contact them and find out what they are doing. That will save us some time. That's normally what you do. I'm a retired accountant, system person, system analyst. So I know that anytime we had to implement a new system or wanted to choose one, we talked to other companies. What was good, what was bad, how can we actually, will it fit our needs? So I think that will help you to kind of save some time, don't kind of reinvent the wheel, it's already there, if they have experience with it. I agree with Justin, we need to have a lower limit. My company was a $12 billion company, our threshold was 2,500. So anybody who needed to buy anything over that amount needed to have a PO, needed to be approved, the head of the department, it had to be approved, and it was monitored against a budget. Nothing was paid, like, couldn't have a credit card. I actually had a credit card that was exclusive to certain things that I could buy. It was limited to that, at that level. So I think it's very important that we look at that. We're growing. So right now we went almost 100%. So this time when I first moved here, about a year and a half ago, 9,500, we're 20,000. What is it gonna be in 5 years with all the houses that I can see that we're building? So we're talking about a lot of money that you guys are going to be responsible. And we are going to be, we don't wanna have another special meeting to discuss a situation like this. So let's get ideas. If you need my time, I'm retired, I'm an accountant. I can help. I don't
Carmen,
mind.
what's your last name? No, seriously.
Avocado.
Did you put your phone number on there or something? Okay, no.
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
I did. I love this town. We just moved here, but I enjoy living here, but actually this is not something that I really was looking for. That it will happen just as soon as it did. Another thing I think is very important, and you may have it in place, that when an employee has a credit card, do they sign an agreement? Do they know that they are actually, they have there's a cause for discharge and prosecution if they violate any of the, if they abuse that. I think it's important because nothing else is fear, it covers you too, because it's like if you see a situation, it's not like you have to deal with it, it's new, you know why it happens. That was very explicit for us when we were given the credit card. We were
I'd love to
signing-
give you another 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, I'm over my.
No, you're fine. I wish I could.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No coffee tonight.
No coffee tonight, sorry, you had enough.
Okay, I still have some of that.
I knew, I'm jacked up.
Catherine Smith, my husband and I are business owners here in Centerton, even though we live right outside of Centerton city limits. Address of the business is 11507, Highway 72. Accountability is a good thing. In addition to being a small business owner, I have a full-time job. I'm the executive assistant to a CEO. I handle expenses for 3 different executives. If they don't have a receipt, they have to get it for me, or I have to help them get it. And then if they don't have it, there is a missing receipt form that has to be filled out. There is accountability on everything that we do at my company. I have one person that they spend $30,000 a month on their credit card. They account for every single penny of it. And I help them do that, and if I make a mistake, accounting comes back to me and says, what is this for? Why was the credit card used? Why wasn't a PO used? We use SAP Concur for our expenses. Credit cards get automatically downloaded in there. You put it in the report, you attach the receipt. It will not let you submit without a receipt. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. As a business owner, if I don't pay my taxes, I don't pay my A&P tax, I'm accountable to the city for that because I am running a business. And that's the other thing. I'm on the A&P commission. I'm freaking out about all this stuff that's going on. What am I liable for? What has happened that I wasn't told, that I voted on, that I approved? This is some really scary stuff. And I know during the few A&P meetings that I've been on, I've been the one who's asked the most questions. So if I have accountability, then everyone in this room has accountability. I understand taxes are necessary, but what was misappropriated could have paid 2 people to help her do her finances. I'm just saying. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Anyone else?
Matt Ellis, 1641 Sweet Briar Way. I think the PO policy that's been talked about is the way to go. My background is in transportation, trucking, and I've managed some fairly decent-sized trucking companies. Been director of operations of one of the biggest heavy haul companies in the country. And one of the things that we did, everybody, if they went to a truck stop to get their truck worked on, they got a PO number. And it's not gonna be difficult. It won't take a month to get that set up. It should be in place next week, but definitely be talked about and done at the meeting on the 5th and be in place a week, no later than a week later. It's not that hard. Another thing, that 2019 audit, let's address that, because that said then that this policy that we're talking about now should have been fixed then. There's 4 of you that have been here since then. Was it fixed? Was it addressed? The correct answer is no. I already know that. The next problem is reconciling the invoices. Now, as a business owner and as a manager of a business, I don't care if you've got 10,000 invoices a month. You still have to reconcile those invoices, and, well, I just don't have time. That's not the right answer. And as a manager, I would never accept that. Bill, you're a manager, and each one of you are managers. I also would ask that the city council revisit what they voted on last city council meeting. Because that was bullied and pushed through. You had the money, and I'm talking about the money that was appropriated from the federal government, the $1.6 million. You got that money in July. And yet you waited until right before Christmas and tried to ram it through. Let's hurry up and get it done so they'll have it for Christmas. Well, why didn't you hurry up and get it done in July, August, September?
20 seconds, man.
Why didn't you do it then? You wanted to play on somebody's emotions, that's why. And in what universe would the street department head or a parks department head need a big ceiling fan? There's not anybody that can say that they reconciled anything. It wasn't done. And if it was, then they need to go back and learn how to reconcile something, because obviously it wasn't done. If you traded your personal finances like this has been traded, I don't think you'd last very long.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll answer one question. We had to wait for federal guidelines on how that money could be used, so that's why it took so long. I work at a neighboring city. It took them until November. We did ours in December. And we had 2 people that had to reconcile all the hours worked to figure out how much those people could receive. So once we got the federal guidelines, then we could figure out how we could spend that money. And we had to have our accounting department figure out how much each employee could get. So it wasn't like we waited until December to throw a motion into it. Everything, all the I's had to be dotted and all the T's had to be crossed, or else if we spend that money not per the federal guidelines, we gotta return that money. So that's why it takes so long sometimes.
Okay, so the federal guidelines didn't come out until November?
They were changing constantly on how that money could be spent.
Don't worry, Jonesboro.
So I just wanted to address that.
Jonesboro gave theirs up in
one concern
August.
that you had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it. Jonesboro gave theirs up in August.
My Amazon account, I can see my history going back to like 2018, for how long I've had my Amazon. I'd like to know, and I'll just sit down, I wanna know who's looking at the history of what's being purchased. And then also on my Amazon account, and I think the rest of the world, we get notifications, your calligraphy set has been shipped in 2 days. I wanna know who's getting those notifications, who's reviewing those, because you don't have to wait for some meeting or some reconciliation, you can see it by that alone. That's what I wanna know.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I wanna know the answer, Bill.
The department gets it. That's
So,
what you're at.
whoever places the order, that's who's notified, that's who the city email is tied to. So, if the police chief puts an order in and says, I'm purchasing something, the email for it's been shipped goes to him. The email for the invoice goes to our invoice mailbox that we have set up.
And who looks at the invoice mailbox?
That is the finance assistant, and then at that point, cause that's all it is, just a final place for them to go to. And then when they get that, they print them off and they put them in the boxes for the department head to print off on.
Is that normal practice for the financial assistant to look at those type of things? Do we know if that is a normal practice among other cities? Or is there any kind of guideline around, hey, these are some things that, you know, we don't, let me rephrase that. Here are some things that are approved. Is there any type of guidance for your department?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So, to Lisa's point, an invoice comes in, you said it comes into an inbox.
Correct.
Correct?
Because we've had in the past where I've lost the invoice, so we're correcting that problem, my invoice is being lost.
Okay, and then at that point, who's looking at that invoice?
It's printed off and then put in the box for the department head to sign off on and review.
Okay. So, the department head gets, the finance director gets the invoice, signs off on that. Is that correct?
The department head signs off on it and they turn it in to be processed.
Okay,
And it starts the process back over again.
okay, so who double checks that?
So it'll go back through the process from assistant to financial director to the assignment and check processing. Same process that we've discussed already.
So we have multiple people who have access to that box, to where if somebody is out, the other one can step in and take care of it. But to make sure that the invoices get there, to make sure they're getting anything, that's the only process of the invoice, that's where they have to go to, so they are not lost. I say that because, you know, everybody does, I had a receipt and I thought it was in my bag, in my wallet, and I don't have it. Oh, we've gotten where statements were, turned into us, say, if you go to Steve's, okay, and you get an oil change, and if you don't pay it, they send us a thing saying, hey, look, this is an open item on here that you need to pay, where to go. That's to stop that.
Do we ever, does finance department as a whole ever question any invoice?
Yeah, we question invoices if it doesn't, depending upon what it states on there, if we can't read it, or if, you know, what is this for, yes, it's questioned.
Oh, I should probably do this. I probably should not get up.
We'll tell you after you're done.
Carl Lady, 122 Skinner Street. I've known Pam for about 5 years, and she's the most upstanding person I've ever met. One of the most upstanding person I've ever met. I think that your whole issue is the purchase order system. I think it's that, correct me if I'm wrong, but with credit cards, it seems as though there should be a purchase order number assigned before they ever go to the store. They should get an authorization for any purchase over whatever limit you set that. If you set it at $1,000, you're handcuffing who's ever sitting at that finance desk. As to what, you know, what they're really looking at. So I think you wanna lower that threshold. That PO's got, they can't go to the store and buy stuff and then come back and let it PO. PO's gotta be issued before pickup. Credit cards in general, I don't know if you ever thought about, going to one of the banks and setting up a purchase order, or a purchase card system.
That's what we have with ours.
That's what you have.
Yeah, it says purchase card right on it, yes.
Okay, okay. So, we set up a purchase card system and every one of the department heads has a purchase card with a limit that I can adjust. And the accounts payable or the HR, my accounts payable person, has 2 city cards that she keeps in her office for times when somebody else needs cards. But with the purchase card system, you can
going in the one that we have, you can go in and limit what they can buy. So in other words, the Parks Department guy can't go buy a ceiling fan. So, and then the SOPs are fine, but they have to be standardized. If they're not standardized, they're not worth paying. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Carl. And to answer your question, Amy, even on the check signing part of it, as we've gotten past the financial department working on it, it comes to the check signing, there's been many times where I've had questions about invoice totals, or when there's multiple invoices and I'm signing one check. There's been many times that I either wait till Pam's back before I'll sign something, just because I wanna make sure that the amount makes sense to me, cause a lot of times, we talked about earlier, is maybe it's not $500, it's multiple $500 purchases, and by the time it comes to us to sign for it, it's a larger amount, and so there's been many times that I have questions about that before I'll just put a signature to it, and so. I don't see it always on the micro end, but, hi, John.
Hi there, Todd. John Box, I live at 742 Apple Ridge Drive here in Centerton. I wish I had a solution for you guys. It seems like it's pretty simple, but I'm sure it's a lot more complex than what I understand. But it seems to me, as I'm accountable for things in my life, so should this city be, as far as money is concerned especially. I have a credit card that Walmart provides me that I have to be accountable for every single thing I purchase. I think the thing that we're missing here is that accountability is missing in this city administration. With accountability, it also puts on me sort of I have to stop and think about what I purchase, because I know I'm gonna be accountable for it. But if I have $1,000 to spend, and I know nobody's really looking at it, it opens up the possibility for things to happen like we're talking about today. So, I just wanted to point out that the big thing here is that nobody's really taken responsibility for anything that's happened. We're just talking about, what we might do, but I hear a lot of, well, we'll just talk about it later, or, well, I don't know. A lot of up in the air, but you guys have been, at least these two, 8 years or more in this city, but you don't know what's going on? I'm pretty disappointed with the city overall. I love living here, been here for 16 years, I'd like to stay another 16 at least. But I don't want my money just thrown about, with no care, or where it's going or how it's being spent. And especially, advancement in the city other than bringing in restaurants. The street department could, in my opinion, do some work with the sidewalks around here. We're a growing community. I'd like to do more than just sleep there. I'd like to be able to walk safely around the streets. There's a lot of things here that be addressed other than just, what seems to be putting in a new swing set here and there. So, anyway, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jim. Liz, you got some solutions?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. Give him your name and address.
Elizabeth Edwards, 261 Sun Meadows Drive. I think the number one problem from what I've been hearing is that it's a department head that is verifying everything that is being bought. That was the problem. I know in most departments, there's an department head, there's an assistant. If the PO or the bill is over $50, the next person in line should verify it, and then if they have a problem with it, they can let them know. Because the whole thing was that you had a department head that was okay and everything. That was the problem. I think you need to have someone else verifying the purchases besides the department head. Because anyone in the department should know what all those items are used for. If not, they shouldn't be in the department. That's my solution.
Thank you.
I actually had that on my list as a question, is who is checking department heads? Who monitors the department heads' expenditures?
As in over a certain dollar amount, I mean, because as a department head.
Where's the check and balance?
So if I have a purchase I wanna make, it's, and I even do it below 1,000, but I go to Bill and I say, hey, look, I'm looking at purchasing this, and this is the reasoning why.
Let's talk about like
He has
Parks
to
and Rec.
sign off, he has to sign off on it or say, yes, it's good to go. But that's me as a department head, I go to him and say, this is what I wanna purchase.
Are you doing that via email or just word of mouth? Or is it a mix?
It's a mix, sometimes it's email, if it's a, you know, over, if it's gonna be over 1,000, then more than likely I'm doing it as an email. So that way I have that documentation, Bill's aware of what it is, there's no questions raised.
Maybe
If-
PO does what you just said, you know,
Yes, and
that puts
it
the
will,
check
and you
out.
will just
We don't have,
approve
it,
the PO,
yeah.
yes.
I hate to butt in again, but I'm glad we're working this process out of how much we can spend, but we're not addressing it. Everybody just keeps sidestepping it. There's a checks and balances. Someone was accountable for letting these items to go through and get purchased. Someone in the department.
That was my
Someone either
question is.
sitting at that desk, sitting in this office, is accountable for what was purchased.
Pam, or not Pam, I mean, I agree. You're not Pam.
Jason.
You're Jason McCoy. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out of the 9 speakers, every one of them PO system. It's been mentioned years ago.
And
It's mentioned now, and
And
accountability.
accountability, yes.
So I think it is important, whether it's in the budget meeting, special meeting, whatever, to have 2 or 3 that we've looked at by then. Extremely thorough details. I'm just laying it out there. But I mean, Mac mentioned it and then John mentioned it. For those that have been around here longer, I mean, if we've had these issues a couple years in a row, like back to the accountability question, like what can we do on that today? We can take off credit cards now, but if you look at Parks and Rec, who's checking that right now? If something's turning in Parks and Rec, who's checking that as a second check and balance today?
To say that,
A purchase.
to say that what was purchased,
Mhm.
so that falls back to our process of it, is saying, okay, when we put it in the system and we say when we're gonna pay it,
Yeah.
what's being purchased, ask those questions if they need to be asked as, and
But that's only to the department head. Who checks him or her?
that would be then up to their supervisor to check them.
But if you're asking the department head, who's checking them? This happened with the department head. Who's checking that person?
Signing off on the invoice, turn it in, and then I see it.
What did you say?
What?
The department head signs off on
But
Okay.
if it's a department head,
Who checks the
who
department
checks
head?
the department head?
It should be the person writing the check.
You have 2 people signing it in our
One of the 2
office.
people.
One's over finance, one runs the city. Who's checking our department heads? I just wanna know that so I can,
Answer it.
Is there an accountability for department heads?
If they purchase something, then if, to question what it is, then yes, we would question it.
Who's we? Who's we?
The finance department.
Okay.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, then I'll make it real simple. We'll break this down in real life in where I work and where we all work. Seems like the cities and entities that work with tax dollars are shielded from what normal people have to are accountable for. If my accountant would come to me in my company and tell me that they ramrodded these things through and no one caught it, you would be fired on the spot. That is misappropriation of funds. Public funds is even worse.
or suspended.
Or suspended, yeah, either or. Some sort of repercussions needs to be made because no one else is, it's like slapping a kid on the wrist. We're not setting precedent for anybody else that's gonna be doing this job or in that position. And I do believe as a city council, you guys are bonded, correctly? Am I correct that you guys are bonded?
Yes, they are.
You're bonded for decisions that are made, and if it's and if funds are misappropriated, then by law, your bonding company would be the person that would have to cover any lost funds, correct?
Oh, yes.
Bill, do you know that answer?
Are you bonded?
That is
Does
correct.
a lawyer know that answer?
No, I didn't know you were bonded.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
You're not bonded?
But I didn't misappropriate anything. I approved
I
the
understand-
budget.
I understand that, but you're
Front
taking
and
the
center.
responsibility of being a council
Front
member,
and center
right?
did.
And then,
So then if that's the case, then the old
He signed the
adage, big
invoice.
fishy eat little fishy,
Yeah.
right? Big fishy, little fishy out here that work blowing in the city. So when big fishy's mad, he stomps on little fishy, he fires people that need to be fired, or at least reprimands the people that need to be
I
reprimanded.
cannot fire an employee.
No,
I
you
approved
can't,
the
but that man
budget.
right there
You can
can.
make
either-
recommendations, you sure
Mr.
can.
Mr. McCoy, can I
Yes.
say
No,
that yes?
Legal, tell him I cannot make
We as a
recommendations to
council
fire an
have
employee.
made recommendations for accountability. We don't have the authority as a council quorum to make any decisions, but yes, recommendations have been made.
Okay, lots of pressure.
The CEO has the responsibility and the authority to fire somebody. He hires them and he can fire them.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Merry Christmas. What's your name?
Is Jamie Asherman. My husband and I own Compass Business Solutions at 108 Haley Drive. And I wanted to suggest implementing maybe a quarterly internal audit rather than just an external audit. From what I understand from what has been talked about, there's an external audit that comes in, a state auditor.
Correct.
However, if you would implement an internal audit process, at least quarterly, if not more, and that process could include your department heads and assistants, the council, the finance department, as well as the mayor, and those meetings, and that it would be a random sample. It would be run through a randomizer quarterly, so you would take every invoice or receipt that was received in the finance department and quarterly run them through a randomizer, pull out a random sample of 30 and audit line by line, which would take care of the line item issue. So I think that what I'm hearing and what I understand is it's not just about the dollar amount that's going through, like the $1,000. It sounds like I could, if it was $200, go to Walmart and spend $200 on the credit card, and no one's checking to see if 75 of that 200 is going to my house or it's going to the office.
That's what we're trying to find out.
Exactly. So
Amen.
that random audit of line by line items would add to that accountability. There would have to be set repercussions put in place for those department heads who have employees who are misusing the freedom that they have.
Because to your defense, if you have a PO system, if you're not checking it, it doesn't do any good.
Exactly. It makes sense that I go to Lowe's and buy a saw. But did that saw go to my house or did it go to my department? So just asking questions sometimes, or if something just doesn't quite look right, that's the only time the questions are asked, then I think they need to happen a lot more, the questions. What I also, in this, I'm probably totally out of line when I say this too, and I know that every one of you is busy and probably has other jobs, and I don't know a lot about it, but, okay. If you were to get involved in the day-to-day process of the departments, then answering the questions to these things later on before the problems happen would be a little bit easier maybe. So taking some time annually to visit maybe other, and I only say that because like claims and customer service in some place. Claims doesn't like customer service until they do each other's jobs. Then they understand the work that goes into it. So, okay, thanks.
And I'm glad you said that, because when I said it, it was shut down.
Well, it's not that, we can visit and see if there's some policies and procedures that need to be changed, because again, our authority is pass the budget, policies and procedures. If the mayor hires or fires a department head, we can either override his firing or override his hiring, but us to go in and be like, telling individual employees what to do. We cannot do that.
No, and that's not my suggestion at all. It's more of a,
understanding
get
how the
a
process
broad overview of everything that's
Right,
under the umbrella
and part
that
of
you
that,
cover.
to understand
And it's
that.
harder than it sounds, I know, I'm not saying that it's an easy thing,
But to go in and, like you said, to observe someone, to even see what the impact might be for a proposed policy change, or, you know, it's like, well, that's really gonna hamper these employees, or this is really gonna benefit our employees.
yes. Or this is the impact of this decision. Does this outweigh this? And knowing the impact before. But also, and I recognize I'm over my time, I'm very, very sorry, but.
Well, would I ask the question, so you
Look
respond?
away from the clock.
The power of the signature on something, I keep hearing the term signing off on. Your signature shouldn't be used on something that's not checked and validated. Whether it's someone else's responsibility prior to it getting to you, if your name goes on it, then it's your responsibility as it goes out the door.
I don't see anyone else. So at this point,
I just wanna thank everybody for being here.
Wait,
Excellent
one
to each
second.
other. Some very good information.
Matt, just a second, because I was gonna ask, I know we have all department heads here tonight, I believe.
Do we have all department heads here?
we got most of them.
I just got back.
And thank you for coming back.
Thanks for putting up with us.
Do we have, is Jocelyn
Why are you
here?
sweating?
Yeah, she's back there somewhere.
The only, I think I've seen Robbie.
Well, Rob's on vacation.
Robbie's on vacation.
Yeah, Robbie's on vacation.
That's the only one I don't think I've seen.
And I think Matt's fixing to start what I was gonna ask, to see if department heads have anything, to address us with, or would like to say to help us in the decisions of what we're looking at.
I just kind of wanted to, in a way, address the citizens, because I know that you all are aggravated, but as a department head, I'm really just kind of pissed off too, because there's a couple of you in the crowd that know who I am and know if I'm a thief or if I'm not a thief, and then there's others that are like, who's the idiot that runs the fire department? So, I just want you to tell, not all of us that work here are doing bad things, and this really hurts, you know, a bunch of us that this has happened to us, because it really makes us look like idiots, even the fact that we didn't do anything. And so there is checks and balances that need to be fixed to all this. And I've already made some changes against them. I've been to 4 of their houses, I think, already since all this, just trying to figure it out. I've invited, the ones that I've talked to so far, I've invited them to the fire station. Can you please come here? You can physically see how we have all our inventories are done. You can see our spreadsheets we have it laid out for each fireman. You know, we each have files. We have everything laid out there. Our fire trucks have all the different tools and pieces. It's all laid out there. It's all on computer systems. So I just don't want you all to think that all of us are bad. Some of us,
This isn't about trying to blame it. This is
no,
trying to
we need to fix the problem. And I want the problem fixed too, because I don't want to look like an idiot. I mean,
if we're here to do anything but try to fix the problem, then we're in the wrong
I mean, we
place.
appreciate you here being to help fix the problem. I just kind of wanted to address you just so that y'all didn't think all of us were just
And we
thieves
don't,
sitting
we
around
don't
there.
think that everyone's bad, that's why I say accountability, we don't want a fall guy. We want the person responsible who signed off on this stuff to say, you know what, I screwed up. Whether they get suspended, whether they get, reprimanded, whether they get fired, it depends on what that person is actually responsible for. We're not lumping everybody into the same category, but as a citizen, these are our tax dollars. And this is very frustrating. And I didn't even know a lot of this was going on until I saw it on social media, because I don't watch TV, and it was infuriating. But this is not to blame somebody who's not responsible. No. This is just accountability, and then let's fix it so it doesn't happen again. Because if it keeps happening, I don't wanna pay my taxes.
I don't blame you. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen in bigger government than here that I pull my hair out of my head and don't want to pay my taxes now.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I know where Mac was going earlier, but.
I've been there.
Sorry, Mac.
Hey, not at all.
And I'm not one to speak, but I just wanna say, it's very unfortunate to those who are doing the right thing.
Yes.
Because now you guys have new things that you have to do in order to make sure that nothing's said or, you know, and it changes everyone.
I mean,
So,
it's kind of a
it's
bad thing
unfortunate.
because I've been listening to all the different ideas and everything else, and I know they're listening. And change to everybody's scary. I know ultimately we're gonna end up with a PO system of some sort, and like I've talked to them a little bit. Streets, police, fire, we never know what we're gonna get to at what hour of the day. So every once in a while, we may have to have that card that is where we have to go to the store and, I mean.
And that's understandable, because you guys are not Parks and Rec where you have 8 to 5 hours.
Hey, let me make a statement. You know, now that I think to this, and there's people in this room who sent me emails that this hasn't been mentioned tonight. If we can pay attention to detail on giving out bonuses to Centerton employees, we sure as hell should be able to pay attention to where we're spending money. Just saying.
Thanks for listening to me. And then for you all, I know you all have a hard job right now. Because ultimately, the fire department's my responsibility, you know, the police department's coyotes, and just every department has, we have the responsibility to do that, and then Bill has ultimately the responsibility to look at all of them. And I know that he's got some of the slack from all this, and Pam and everything else, and Rachel and Todd, and, you know, all of you all. And I would like to see some things change. I would like to, I mean, we have ideas too, even the department heads, I don't want you to forget about us, because we're not all bad. And we can help change this for the better without just completely destroying everything. I mean, I'm fine with POs, but I'm really scared that if you do POs to me, I think I may end up having to have a secretary. But I don't have to have one right now, so I don't wanna waste too much money, because we run on a tight ship, and it's sad that someone goes and destroys this for us, because some of us, I mean, we kinda got
Your
ourselves.
system's not gonna be as scary as you think
Yeah,
once it gets
I
set
agree.
up, I
Well, I
promise.
ran.
You and I've
I
already
came from
argued
Bingo,
this,
we
so.
ran on a PO system.
It's
It's
easy once you
changed.
get started, so
It's just
getting
touching.
starting up, it is gonna be rough, it's gonna be rough on all of us, but once it gets started and gets this, everything figured out, it will
But I just
actually
wanted,
be easier on you
anyway,
guys.
I just wanted basically y'all to remember that on the PO system, we need some, cause that's what we're gonna do, I know it is. We just need some
You want
checks and
flexibility.
balances, so we can have some flexibility in the middle of the night and on the weekends and whatnot, to where
No
we
water for
can.
you.
I think when you
No
guys,
water off.
I think when you guys meet, you have your work session on it, again, I said, it's important to have the department heads there for sure. And I think they're gonna be your biggest source of solution, because they can explain kind of how things work to Mac's point.
I mean,
Absolutely.
like the PO system with Darren, I mean, I worked with as well with Darren, or working the same time.
Thanks, Catherine.
But,
I'll be back.
so we know how the PO systems work, but there's also preset accounts for different places that you can walk in, you can actually get a part for a truck or.
And you can still do that with the POs.
Yeah, hey, Matt, we're not making a solution, that's just something we want.
I'm just telling you that ultimately, it's tough on us and we're kind of in the back just kind of bickering and moaning about kind of thing. It's just changing. So whatever we need to do, we're here with you all, because we don't want to look like idiots either.
It's painful for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it kind of worked its way out.
So, thank you. You have anything? Getting real close.
I just wanted you guys
Your
to have an
3 minutes is up.
opportunity to speak up, so.
I have a quick question, can I say something? I only used 1 minute of my time.
You did,
In
I will
fairness.
say that, maybe not even
We
quite 1
caught
minute.
this, or it was caught because somebody's gone, they resigned, whatever. I wanna know what's being done about what's like, how are you looking back to see if somebody else is doing it? Do we have to wait for somebody else to get resigned or fired?
That's where I think we need to seriously talk about an internal auditor
Yeah.
coming in
Yeah,
and
there
looking
needs to be
at
an
it.
audit.
I agree.
And
then
then
not
another thing
state audit,
is, I
it
wanna
needs to
know,
be an internal
if
audit.
as a citizen, I said, hey, I wanna see everything that's been purchased on your Amazon account for the last 3 months, you know, like I can see the picture and you wanna buy it again, can I do that? Can I ask that and see it? That's a lot, as far as I'm
It's
concerned.
not as long as there's a document already there, so the invoices that get printed off, they don't have a picture, they just have the wording of what it is. They don't have a picture, that's how it's listed on the invoice.
I think what she's saying is normally when you purchase something on Amazon, there's a nice little picture that goes along.
So you see your history, you
But-
can't see your history?
And she's saying you're just gonna get, it's gonna say it was a
It's not gonna have the
blue
picture, it's
3x4.
Okay, but it'll have the history.
Yes, is what she's saying is political, yes.
Okay, correct, thank you.
Lance, you want to
Correct,
come up?
and the motions are, okay, sorry.
I echo Matt's, everything Matt said. I mean, we need to be more accountable. Amazon is a vital tool. I use Amazon quite a bit when I was the park supervisor. I found stuff reasonable, and like I said, you can get it in 2 days, free shipping, versus going out on, vsn.sports.com. They wanna charge you freight, they wanna charge you everything, and it's a little easier with Amazon. Amazon is vital to us. But me as a purchaser, I have a sign on with Amazon, and I can see my purchase history, my past orders, and only that. Melinda has one, and she can only see what she orders. The department head at the time could only see the department head can see everything. I've been switched to administrator on that account, so now I can see everything versus what Melinda's ordering and what I'm ordering. And I'm talking about my department, but I can't see what other departments are ordering. And technically, it's really none of my business. But I echo everything Matt said. We need the accountability, and we appreciate everybody here tonight, everybody's suggestions. Bill said earlier, we met as a department head today to scratch our heads and what can we do? I'll reiterate it again, if I've gotta do a PO for every nut and bolt, it's gonna be difficult. But if that's what you gotta say, that's what you say. If a grader and a backhoe is down for 2 or 3 days, it's down for 2 or 3 days. But I'm gonna let the citizens know it's down, because I gotta go through the process to do it.
Okay.
That's only fair. I would welcome, like Matt, I'm open, I'm there. The citizens could come up and take a look at the shop, take a look at the equipment that we have. Look at the conditions that we're working in. They're fine conditions, there's nothing bad with the conditions, but see what we're working with. And see that we don't have a huge infrastructure. I mean, what we have is adequate, don't get me wrong, but if I get a hydraulic pump, go out, I've got to order it. I don't have one sitting in stock. But I welcome you to come up, take a look around. It is a public facility. Come up, ask questions, sit down, visit with me. I have no problem with visiting with anybody. I will not discuss the case. The case is done. When the case is final, we'll sit down and discuss the case all day long. But until then, I can't discuss it. But you ask any other questions, I'm open to it. I think transparency is a big thing. I don't have any problem with transparency.
Lance, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's policy abuse in this case. And who's signing off on it and things like that.
Understandable. But, it just, it hurts. And we will get through it. And we've survived other stuff. And we'll make the best of it. But I appreciate everyone. And I appreciate the council for taking the time to have this meeting tonight. We'll get to this. The slogan for Centerton years ago used to be Centerton is a winner. And I believe Centerton is still a winner. So we hit bumps, but we will survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance.
Michael Thompson, 268 Front Street. I just have a couple questions. I mean, we've heard it from everybody else, but there is, to some, I mean, we're not looking for a scapegoat or anything, but we're actually looking for accountability, and that still hasn't been brought up directly. So there has to be, in a business, this happens, somebody is directly held responsible. So as citizens, I think we deserve to know, where are those steps? So there was the head, and then who's in charge of him, and then who's in charge of him. Or-
Just to reiterate, council has no.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but there is somebody. Somebody had the authority to suspend him, fire him, ask questions, all these things. So I think as citizens, we deserve to know that step, that process.
No matter what department.
No matter what department, right, correct? Yeah, so that this doesn't happen again. And not that we're looking for somebody to beat up, but we don't want this to happen again in another 2 years. This just happened, instances similar to this. We can't keep doing it every 2, 4, or 5 years. We need to stop it, fix the policy, fix the problem, and move forward. And we can't heal as a community, and the public will never have trust in anybody unless we point out and say, there's the culprit, there's the problem, here's the solution, this is how we're gonna move forward. And we need to do that together. Agree? Or, I agree, but there has to be accountability for that to happen. Nobody's gonna trust anybody ever again. Nobody. It has to be addressed.
Thank you, Michael. And just to be transparent, I have asked for accountability. As a council, I don't have that authority. I have asked for it.
Yes, ma'am, I appreciate that. And I think, Bill, you owe us. You are our mayor. You are the city manager. And anybody sitting in your position would be expected to answer that. All the way down the line.
I'll be happy to answer it. Well, now, you can sit down, I'll answer the question.
Yes, sir.
So the process, like we've explained, several times, is the department head, they present a budget to the city. We say we're gonna do these items, these items, these items. Say items, it's under $1,000, I don't sit there and approve every single purchase they make. They come in, they turn the invoice in, we sign off on it, it's done, it's part of the budget. One of the things I do is I look at their budgets every month. I present them budgets to you every month, to the council, and I look at these line items.
So you approved the fan and the calligraphy set then?
I don't even know, I have to see the invoices to see what we approved it for. Because I will tell you, on that fan, we got gazebos all over the city that they might put them in. I don't know. They have offices. They have big offices up here at the street department. They could go in there too. I don't know until I see the invoice. And I'm gonna tell you, I am very frustrated with this too. I'm very sad by my people know this. I'm very upset about this because I put the trust in these department heads.
Absolutely.
As I should.
Yes, sir.
I don't micromanage them. I was accused of that one time when I first started this job. They said, no, I don't micromanage. I oversee it, but I don't micromanage everything they do. Okay? Until I see the invoice, I don't know where to, because the department head will say, hey, he signs it, they put the name of the project, what line item it comes out, there's information on that invoice.
You have it now, what are you gonna do?
I gotta wait until their investigation over, I can see everything.
Yes, sir, but there's other people involved, it wasn't just one person. One person didn't do this in 30 years and then just nobody knew about it.
Yeah, I didn't know
There's
about
people
it.
around, there's people that saw stuff, there's
Yeah,
people involved.
That's the problem.
Again, we got a full investigation going on until, he lets me see
It's not
everything.
gonna work forever.
Mayor, does that mean that no accountability will be taken until the investigation is over?
No, absolutely not.
Well, then
I mean,
who's
you just
responsible?
make-
We keep talking about budget. This is not a budget meeting.
Right.
We need to micromanage us down into what we're talking about. We're talking about accountability. That's why this whole meeting was held as accountability, because you've got a whole public that's very frustrated with the fact that misdoings has been on and nothing is being done about it. One man has got arrested for it, but there has a process that it needs to be addressed. Someone dropped the ball. Whoever that may be needs to step up and say, that was me, I messed up,
Right.
whatever happens, I'm sorry. This is where the buck stops. And whether the buck stops with you or the buck stops with the accounting department, someone needs to say, this is bad, I messed up, and deal with the consequences. You're not gonna have, every one of us is gonna walk out of this room feeling the same way we walked in, nothing got done. Future is good. I appreciate the fact that we're gonna fix the problem, but until a solution is given, you're gonna be just floundering, because you're not gonna have the respect of anybody. And I'm not saying you have to fire somebody, I'm saying that someone needs to take responsibility for it.
Mayor, what do you think, Mayor, Everybody's asking you questions. What do you think?
About what? The whole situation?
No, who's responsible? Who's responsible? You had to say, hey, I screwed up, City of Centerton. I missed this invoice. My fault, my bad. Let's get this crap straightened out and let's move on to the next thing. Instead, we're sitting here floundering. Oh, he said, she said, he said, but we're talking about budgets.
I will tell you, with all your comments, I believe the PO system is probably a good thing.
We sidestep every single time.
Huh?
We sidestep every single time. Where is the accountability? Who owns it? Quit sidestepping it with the PO system. In the future, that's well and good. But there is a problem that happened now. And there is somebody that is accountable for that. Who is it?
I'll say that I signed some checks, so I guess I'm accountable.
I will say that.
I haven't seen the results or the receipts because if I'm not mistaken, they are not with the city right now. Am I?
That would probably be a question for Chief, but yeah, it's my understanding that it's all the evidence has been.
So you can get up and walk out all you want, but until the receipts are in front of us, until this investigation is over, how can you say who did?
The receipts have been.
They were available, or they wouldn't have made it to the police department.
Some of the checks, so. Okay.
They were available, or they wouldn't have made it to the police department. So it was already known going to the police department to file a police report whose name was on the invoice, who signed for it.
I didn't check.
Okay, who filed the police report?
I think if you want to come up to the stand, you want to take 3 minutes, you're welcome to do that.
I think we need answers, and we're asking for accountability. I can come up there for 3 minutes and ask for accountability, just like I can sit here. We're sidestepping.
Just out of respect.
Okay, I'll stand here for 3 minutes. Where's Cody Ellis, 1641 Sweetbriar Way? Who is accountable?
From what I understand, listening to everybody, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, the process is, it goes through the finance department. It goes to the finance assistant. It then goes to the finance director. Then it goes to the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I have asked for accountability. I have asked that the finance director be looked at for transparency.
I would caution you guys,
and
if
that's
you
why
guys are talking about it, this would be an executive session.
This is
thing
why I
to talk
haven't
about.
said anything.
I understand, but there is accountability.
There is accountability that needs needed, yes.
And we're not, and the citizens are not getting it.
I understand.
And we've had this problem for years. Years. I've been here a short period of time, just over 3 years, but we've had this problem for years.
I understand.
And this is not, I mean, it's not going to end. How many times do we have to be in the media with negative publicity? How many times do we have to constantly have problems from this city?
I understand. Unfortunately.
Northwest Arkansas, we are the one city in Northwest Arkansas that is constantly in negative light. Other bigger cities, they're in negative light too. But this city, no bigger than we are, we're in the negative light repeatedly. Come on.
I agree.
20 years ago, this city was known for being in negative light all the way down at West Fork. It was well known. And now here we are 20 years later, and we're still in negative light. So where is the accountability? One department head getting terminated, one department head resigning, one department head getting charged. But that department head didn't just approve it and nobody else look at it. And if you're just signing stuff just to go through a process and blindly doing it, then that's a problem.
I agree.
So I'm still posing that question. Who is taking accountability for it?
All right, so we find out where that invoice came from. Let's say it's on check number 2020, okay? Just
Come on up, Jim.
Come
on back to the front.
Can you give me 3 more minutes here? I need 3 minutes. So let's say the check comes back and it's check number 10,001, okay? The person that put their signature on that, that's where you start.
Yeah.
Right there. That's it. Start right there. Why did you sign a check without an invoice and check it? If you did that responsibility, then I would expect you to step up and say, I signed it, I didn't check it. What are my repercussions?
You were
So-
outside and I said, I've signed some checks, I'm responsible.
Okay? Then you need to pay accountable to it when you get elected or go for election next time, then you'll be taken out of your seat. That is your accountability, right? So we can't fire you. We can pull a special election and get you out, but when your election comes up now, if you're the one that says, hey, I signed that check and I'm responsible that I didn't catch this fan, then you have to account for votes, right? That's how you get there. Okay? Same with the mayor. He gets elected. If he says, hey, I did the responsible thing, I did it, I signed it, I'm sorry, he has to be accountable for the voters when it comes up time. If someone in the accounting department or whatever messed up, they have to be accountable to you, but you still have to be accountable to everybody else. That's how it works. It's simple. It's just asking someone to take responsibility for it. That's what's wrong with our society right now, is no one takes responsibility. I've had my tail chewed by many a good man and many not a good man. But if I deserved it, I took it, and I didn't say anything about it. Responsibility. That's what we're lacking in America right now. Tons of it. No one wants to be responsible. Do better. I mean, that's an old cliche, but do better. Everybody needs to do better. It's ridiculous.
Jason hit on the point that you're responsible. And your accountability is you won't be elected. There are other issues other than just not being elected. When you rubber stamp a check, putting your name on it, that's misappropriation of funds.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple. It's against the law.
Sure is.
There's accountability coming. Make no mistake.
Council, you have anything else?
Maybe it'll
I
take an
just
indictment.
Remind people, if you forgot to say something tonight, email us, and we'll
As
get
a
you all
whole,
your thoughts.
email us as a whole, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mayor, have you thought about accountability in this situation? Is there,
Apparently, we've got to do some other processes. I mean, I thought that what the city's been doing here for the last 11 years has been fine, but apparently it's not. So, PO system's good. It's a good idea. Again, I told my department heads, I mean, they should be, I put that trust in them. And apparently I've been let down.
Listen.
Apparently you've been let down.
There are merit raises here as there are in corporate America. There are performance evaluations. Those things are taken into account. I do feel, whether it's today or in the future, we owe an explanation. This city's going to continue to just draw apart until we share. We just.
I agree.
I've heard accountability several times, and guys, I promise you, it's not because we're not asking for it. Okay.
Just because it's not being given.
We've heard you. You've said it multiple times.
It's the mayor's responsibility ultimately. They didn't let you down, Mayor. You're responsible for them.
I let you down.
You let the city down.
Okay, I'll accept that.
It's not that easy, though.
Yeah, well, all right,
It's
you've
not that
accepted,
easy.
now what?
It's not that easy. You can't just roll it all under, oh, I did it. That doesn't count.
No, I don't believe I did anything wrong. I mean, I did sign the invoice, I've seen it. And, you know, like I said, I don't know what the project it went to. I don't know. It could have went to someone's office in a remodel, I don't know. Not without seeing the receipt. And we see hundreds of invoices every year.
You're gonna
So
see
he
more
admitted
as
to
the
it, so
city
he
grows.
needs
Yes.
to.
Yeah, no, you're
he
right.
needs
I
to be
don't
charged.
disagree.
He admitted the misappropriation.
So basically, we're gonna go out here with
So
no
you need to
accountability
say
for
that
any
call
of
for
it.
his
We're gonna fix the
right here,
problem.
man. We got
But we're not
one
gonna get
video.
any accountability for anybody
He
wrongdoing other than the man that got caught with his hand in the cookie jar.
I don't think
He
I've done
admitted
anything.
crimes.
we are going
Ask for
into
his rights.
executive session after this, so we can discuss.
Thank you, I guess. I got a quick question, Mayor.
Go ahead, Randy.
How many things are disapproved that come across the desk? Are they paid for? And how's that work? They've already paid for it, you see it, you don't sign it, I'm not paying for this. How do you send it back?
I don't
How many
think we-
things are paid for?
Has it
just-
ever happened?
Everything's are just about people.
I don't think we.
Everything gets approved. I mean, everything gets approved. It's not like hands are in the city over here approving everything, and you're signing up on it with rubber stamp on it, and everything's being approved.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody saying, well, we need approving this because it doesn't go with this, you know?
Wait a sec, you're
Like-
saying in all those years, nothing's ever come across your desk, and you said, you know what, they shouldn't have bought that, take it back, or I'm not paying. Never has that happened in the history of ever in your marriage-ship.
I don't recall that, no, but they
Wow.
asked me to buy things and.
That's
Just
fine.
wow.
I just wanted to clarify what I understood.
Yeah, they've asked me to buy things over here. But not after it's purchased.
Then you're basically saying you approve everything regardless, that's what
That's
you're
it.
saying, Mary, you do realize that.
Yep.
We got anything else?
Hey guys, so kind of what happens, just so you're aware, Jason, you said thanks for the executive session. So what happens in executive session are, it's not that we don't want you guys to know, it's because there's decisions and conversations as far as, that we don't have control over, that we're gonna have a conversation about internally. Not that we're hiding anything, I just wanted to clarify that. I wanna go back just to everyone that spoke. I do personally appreciate it. Carmen, thank you for sharing, background in accounting. Like, I appreciate you guys sharing your background and being transparent. I do agree that there needs to be some accountability, and I assure you that we're fighting for that. Just want to be clear.
So I'll make a motion to go into executive session at this time.
I'd like to know what we're going, no idea.
Yeah, no, I wanna talk.
Discipline, promotion,
No,
demotion.
I wanna talk to you about promotion of street
Is that a joke?
You've got to be kidding.
So we got a motion to go in? You got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Scurry off.
What an abuse of power. Sit. They'll come back out. They have to come back out and announce everything. No, they'll have to come back out and announce everything. It's not over. They have to come back out and announce what they decide. I won't. Amy, we need to talk later.
Email me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I will.
You can FOIA all kinds of emails.
I've got unfilled FOIA requests, so I'll be emailing.
Okay, that's fine.
Have a good one.
You too.